Welcome into another edition of Hand Raise Guys, presented by Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating. Getting this to you early today because some of it's kind of timely. Chase Parham and Richard Cross, you'll hear from them in just a minute. About an hour of Ole Miss baseball. Ole Miss and Mississippi State get started in about 6 hours. That game at Swayze Field slated to start at 6 p.m. You can watch it if you're not going to be in town on the SEC network. So we'll get to that. He and Richard talk for, like I said, about an hour about that series, about the state of the Ole Miss baseball program. And then Tyler Siskey of QwikRecruiting will join me here in the Clark Ford studios afterwards. We'll be live. You can comment and participate in that conversation if you would like. And we'll talk about some NIL-related issues that have popped up. Quarterbacks Tyler's had a chance to look at. Marcel Bell is supposed to be here this weekend. I'm starting to hear talk that Jaden Rashada will be here as well. So we'll talk about both of those guys, just about how NIL is impacting recruiting, how Tyler thinks it might impact locker rooms, teams moving forward, something Lane Kiffin has talked about as recently as this week in his press gatherings with us as Ole Miss gets ready to wrap up spring football on Saturday with the Grove Bowl at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, that game at noon on Saturday. So that a lot of things to get to that we'll talk about with him. We'll also talk some NFL draft. NFL draft begins a week from today in Las Vegas. A lot of talk about where Matt Corral might go. Certainly appears that his stock might be rising a little bit here as we get closer and closer to the actual draft. So we'll get to all that in a minute. First, I want to make sure that you know this is brought to you by Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating. Comer, 662-801-1777. It's the same great products, same great services, same great people. Just depends on where you are. If you're in Oxford, Tupelo, you want to get in touch with Comer. If you are in South Haven, DeSoto County, Memphis, Hernando, you want to get in touch with the people at Southern, 662-429-4429. You want to make sure that air conditioner is ready to roll as the warm weather approaches, as the cool weather starts to get out this weekend. You want to make sure that you're ready to go, that you got the Freon. All of that stuff is completely topped off and ready to go so that when you ask the AC to cool your house, it's ready to do it. And if you have a problem, I suggest you get in touch with Comer and Southern. Eric Payne, all the people there at Comer and Southern are going to take great care of you. The service is amazing. You'll see what I mean the first time that you reach out to them. This will be the Friday Oxford Exxon podcast as well. Oxford Exxon Highway 6 West in Oxford, just next door to the Oxford Crystal. Go in, you can fill up your vehicle outside. Go in, get yourself great snack selection, plate lunches, fountain drinks, daiquiris, the whole deal there at the Oxford Exxon Highway 6 West in Oxford. I'm coming to you from the Clark Ford Studios. Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. Call that number, ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest completely up to you. You can shop that quote around, or you can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. Again, 662-257-1900. Guest, Richard Cross, Tyler Siskey, join on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. Rafters Music and Food on the Square in Oxford. Great place if you're coming up this weekend, whether it's for the Grove Bowl or for the baseball series or for the Double Decker Festival or some combination thereof. Stop by Rafters. Make it a part of your weekend. Grab a burger or a po' boy. Great appetizer selection, great beer selection, full bar, and more. They're at Rafters on the Square in Oxford and Rafters in New Albany. Don't forget, Dead Soxy has a event Friday afternoon just outside of Nielsen's on the Square in Oxford. It's from 1 to 5. Jason Simmons, the founder, CEO of Dead Soxy, will be there. You can check out some of their new line. You can talk to him about suggestions you have, thoughts you have. Just talk, shop, or whatever you want to do. He'll be out there from 1 to 5 with a pop-up. You can get some Dead Soxy gear. And if you're not going to be in Oxford, it's okay. Go to deadsoxy.com. Enter the promo code Rebel Grove at checkout. Get 25% off the best socks you will ever put on your feet. So like I said, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, they get started this evening at Swayze, a big 3-game series for both teams. Both teams have a lot of work to do to improve their standing and get into the NCAA tournament. So without further ado, here is Chase Parham and Richard Cross talking Ole Miss, Mississippi State baseball, state of the Rebels program, and more.
My good friend Richard Cross now joining me on the Raptors Music and Food Hotline, Sports Talk Mississippi, SuperTalk.fm. Richard, it's been a little while. It's not golf season, so I haven't seen you in a little bit. I know you've done some Ole Miss baseball, done some just different things. Obviously, your show every single day, and it's good to be with you, to talk to you for a few minutes. But also, it's a season, I was about to say unlike any other, but I'm trying not to do that. But one that we're not used to necessarily. You and I have been around for a while, and we haven't seen this.
Shouldn't we be in golf season by now, by the way? I mean, like, it's cold, though. This weekend it changes.
Are you not in golf season?
Yeah, just not a lot.
Okay.
That's probably my fault, though, more than anything. But, yeah, no excuses after it warms up a little bit. Yeah, so this is year 22 for Mike, and this is year 22 for me, kind of being around Ole Miss baseball and working with it. His first year was the first year that I filled in on the radio.
Yeah.
And, shortly after that, I guess I spent 6 seasons where I was with David for every game on the radio, and have done a lot of television stuff in the last 7-8 years since the SEC network came online. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been around it for a really long time, and there have not been many years like this. I guess, I went through a window, Chase, where I was working, but I was still student, very much a fan. But I've always loved college baseball.
Yeah.
And so, it was sitting out in left field and grilling, and I would make road trips and might have gotten asked to leave early in one particular road trip. Wasn't it the 2002 season where Ole Miss got to number 4 in the country and they went to Tuscaloosa and
that is correct. And then they dropped either 10 of 12 or 11 of 12 to end the season.
Yeah, so that 02 season, their Friday game against Alabama was supposed to be a night game, and it got moved up to early afternoon because Alabama was hosting gymnastics, like Super 6 something or other. And there was a large time that was had. And might have gotten asked to leave early. So, yeah, I just say all that to say I've been around it for a long time. And outside of 02 and a couple of seasons where they've missed the postseason, there have not been many years where it has felt like this, especially at the halfway point.
Yeah, so I want to go a little bigger picture for the most part, but they're 5-10. I wrote a story this morning about basically what they had to do. We're recording this on Monday for anybody. I don't really know when I'm running it yet, but about what they have to do from a metric standpoint. For the most part, 13-17 is the lowest anyone has gotten in. Alabama got in last year at 12-17. They won a couple games in Hoover. Ole Miss has an RPI problem too. I mean, just kind of being the Cliff Notes version. The point being that it feels not even necessarily that the record is the problem, but just how they're playing, that there's an inevitability to this season, no matter sort of what the record ends up. And I guess my question for you is, are you watching this? And are you seeing a team that even has the ability to get hot, to whatever you want to say a run is, whatever you want to make that out to be? Because when I watch it, the only thing that I see similarly from a season standpoint that I've covered, and like I said, this is year 17 for me, is 2011 maybe. They went 13-17. They were not very good. They had some pitching issues. They had a couple pretty good offensive players. But it just doesn't feel like the personnel is there. And because of that, it is a difficult thing to cover and to follow, where you're sort of waiting on, is it going to get better? Because I have a hard time finding the path to make that be the case.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I mean, right, you say 13 is kind of the bare minimum. 14 is where you feel comfortable if you've got RPI numbers that stack. I mean, if you're going to get in with 13, you better have an RPI that's really, really good. Ole Miss did early in the year, but they've kind of played themselves into not having an RPI that's very good. And so I think 14 probably is the number, absent a pretty significant run in Hoover. Here's the issue that I've got in looking and going, you know what? This is how they get hot. Offensively, I think there's talent there. And the majority of these guys you have seen hit, and at times hit for average. You don't expect to see, and I haven't checked averages after the weekend, so if I'm off by 20 or 30 points, forgive me, but you don't expect to see Hayden Dunhurst hitting 206. You don't expect him to hit 300, but 255, 260, I don't think that's asking too much. I mean, you kind of have gotten maybe what you thought from Leatherwood. You think Jacob Gonzalez is going to hit for better average. You don't expect Chatagnier to be hitting 200 or 210 or whatever the number is. Again, not that you expect him to be hitting 330, but 290. So I guess the offensive pieces, I would say, if you told me they got hot, it's going to be because the offense kind of caught lightning in a bottle and drove. But we haven't. You kind of hit the point in the year where it's like, okay, win, right? I mean, so you went through 4 weekends of non-conference and you've gone through 5 weekends of league play. And so you've played 9 of your 14 weekends in the regular season, but now you're just going to be completely different against really good competition down the stretch. That's hard. And then the inconsistency on the mound. I mean, I think what Dylan DeLucia has given you a couple of times in a starting role is really, really good. Who else do you feel great about? And that's not a knock. I mean, it's not like these guys want to be bad, but I mean, because Josh Mallett's had a couple of good outings, we think that Josh Mallett's is now a front end guy as opposed to what he was a year ago as a freshman. Not to mention that he had mono and was, a slow start on everything. I mean, Drew McDaniel, I mean, the sample size is big enough, right? I mean, Derek Diamond, we know what these guys are. And that doesn't mean that they're not great people. It doesn't mean you don't like them, but it's in terms of, are they frontline SEC starters? Do you have a legitimate SEC bullpen? No. And to me, that makes it really, really hard to say, we're going to put this thing together and make a run and, are going to win, going to flip it. And instead of going 5-10 in the first half, going to go 10-5 in the second half. We're going to go 11-4, 12-8. You're talking about something that's really hard to do when you've got a great team. Never mind when you've got a team that's got significant deficiencies.
Yeah, you look at Ole Miss right now, and I'm not a math major, but I'm pretty sure they would miss Hoover if it were today. I think they would lose the tiebreaker to Missouri, and Kentucky would be below them, and Ole Miss would be one of the two that would miss, courtesy of the South Carolina series, because Missouri would have a tiebreaker.
And last week, Chase, was the first time where, I mean, I had entertained is this team going to miss the postseason? But when I said miss the postseason, I was thinking, are they going to possibly not get to the tournament?
Yeah, not Hoover.
I wasn't thinking, wait, there only 12 teams go to Hoover.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're sitting there, tied for 13th, I guess it was, going into last week. And I mean, that's not a fun possibility to think about.
No, they're, just quickly kind of, playing off what you're talking about to open up the next topic is offensively, it's not even batting averages. Their own base percentage as a team in league play is 311. 311 OBP as an offense. They are so home run dependent. They have pretty bad at bats. I mean, Mike Bianco was asked over the weekend, I guess after the Friday game, when they had 2 hits outside of Elko's 4-for-4 night, and said, you guys only faced 2 3-ball counts the entire game and didn't walk. What did you think? And he said, well, we're not a team that takes a lot of pitches. Well, maybe you should be. I mean, at some point, the offense is going to have to adapt, going to have some do some different things if they are going to just be more competitive to be better. And the point in saying all that is that, the Pollyannas go, okay, there have been 13 and 17 teams that have made runs in the postseason. The 2019 Auburn team went 14 and 16 the regular season. They end up in Omaha. They had Tanner Burns. They had an 11 RPI. That was a different animal than what we're seeing right now. And when I step back and look at it, the offense has not been good. I think the offense is partly pressing because of the lack of pitching. They never get a chance to settle into a game. It's constantly, I think they know in their heads, there's no Nikhazy, there's no Hoagland. You got to score, and you got to score early. And I think it leads to some different things. But when you look at the DNA of this roster, it's not a ton different than most Ole Miss teams we cover, except for the juniors and the people who are supposed to be weekend starters are not the same caliber of production as we're used to seeing from those guys in a Mike Bianco program. Drew McDaniel, Derek Diamond, top 75 prospects out of high school that are not participating like that. But that's typically what you see at this point for that program. Jackson Kimbrell hasn't taken a step. Wes Burton is non-existent. You look at the sophomores, and it's Mallets and it's Doherty, but nobody's giving you that extra step. So the two classes that are occupying the most scholarship money, that are occupying the guys who typically progress into these weekend roles, they've just gone absent on it. I mean, Ole Miss had a class that was ranked top 5 in the country where their only two producers out of that class are Diamond and Chatnier and McDaniel, if you want to include him at this point. So in some ways, we can talk about the minutia of this team, but this team was actually, it's a development or a recruitment or however you mix those up, put those together, tear those apart. It's a roster composition problem more than it's even a playing or a coaching problem at this point.
And you know what's interesting about that is if you followed Ole Miss baseball recruiting, you know that it's got a life cycle, right? I mean, there's a big class where you expect a ton of contributors, and then there's smaller classes, but they haven't really missed on the smaller classes. Like even when you've had a year where you didn't bring in 12 or 15 new guys, you brought in 7 or 8 new guys, 5 of those 8 contributed and were difference makers. There just haven't been a lot of misses. Now, do you have attrition on every single team? Of course you do. And you even have attrition where guys leave and they go and they start elsewhere, right? I mean, you had Josh Hall starting in right field for Auburn this year before he got hurt. Then you had the infielder a couple of years ago. Was it Bryce Blom that left and went to Texas A&M? I mean, that happens, right? I mean, and guys leave for a number of reasons, and sometimes other places are just better. But by and large, it's been the big classes that reshape the roster, but they've been able to add complementary pieces in maybe the other 2 years between every third year where there's a big class because of baseball numbers. And they're not in that cycle right now. I mean, I think Carl Lafferty has done as good a job with – I know nobody wants to hear about limitations, right? I get it. And we don't have to go down that road. But the reality is there are limitations in the state of Mississippi that exist, and specifically at Ole Miss that exist, that don't exist other places. The talent that Carl Lafferty has brought in on this roster, over the course of 10, 15 years is pretty remarkable when you consider it. But that's not where they are right now. And I understand fans' frustration as well when you say, okay, top 5-ish coaching salary, top 5-ish in terms of investment into the overall program, top 5 in fan support, top 5 in, any way you want to measure a college baseball program. Almost the top 5 in the entire country out of 300 Division I baseball teams. And it's not top 5 results, and it hasn't been top 5 results. So I do understand the frustration. I've been really hesitant to go down the, it's time to make a change thing. And I will admit that part of the reason, but I think this is kind of a loser's mentality, and I've come around to it, is, you don't know where you're going to end up next. Because the consistency with this Ole Miss program under Mike Bianco has been remarkable. And everything that Ole Miss baseball is today is a result of Mike Bianco and his leadership and his stewardship of the program. But at the same time, given the way last season ended, and I mean more off-season than the way the actual season ended, and the pretty clear stuff that was laid out for what they needed to accomplish going forward, I mean, it feels like you're headed toward an inevitable ending, right? And you're just kind of watching it happen in slow motion.
Yeah, because it's interesting because we have the same conversations in our respective shows all the time, or with people around town, or hell, with each other from time to time. But Ole Miss baseball is what it is because of Mike. Now, in saying that, the SEC has been so much more financially involved with baseball over the last 2 decades that it's not like if Mike Bianco had never come around, Ole Miss was still going to be 1996 Ole Miss from an investment standpoint. Probably would be similar to Auburn, if you made me guess. That's kind of where I think I would put Ole Miss in that thing, somewhere around the Auburn program at this point. There probably wouldn't be the level of expansion and all these things unless they won under some different regimes and whatnot. We can't predict that future. So it's right, and it's a little misleading all at the same time. And I feel like that's almost kind of the floor for Ole Miss. In a worst-case scenario, Keith Carter fires Mike, makes a terrible hire. What's it look like? Auburn on its bad years, probably something like that, because they care more than Alabama. It's not going to be as bad as Alabama could potentially be from time to time, but I think Auburn's probably a decent comp in that. But I guess that's my point, is that, yeah, sure. I mean, it is a loser mentality to a certain extent. We all know the names that would get mounted about should a coaching vacancy be available at Ole Miss. And I guess that's where I'm going. We know what happened at the end of last season, the LSU stuff, just the overall things that the negatives are for Mike Bianco, the 1 in 9 chances to go to Omaha or whatever it is in games. I guess 1 for 9, it's 1 in 8. And we are kind of operating under this illusion.
Wait, it's not that bad, is it?
I think it's
only
it's 2 from 5.
He's 1 in 6.
2 from 9. And no, it's 8, because then they had game 3s against Arkansas and Arizona.
I thought it was 7 super regionals and they've won 1.
Well, yeah, but they had 2 chances to go against Texas. They had 2 chances.
I see what you're saying. No. I just was saying it's 7 super regional opportunities. They've got whatever. I mean, yes. I
little minutia there, right? Yeah, sure.
I don't know if it was on your message board or somewhere else where that chart was floating around that showed what all 14 teams in the SEC had done in a same time period. It's the numbers are not good. Hey, yeah. You know what I've thought a lot about?
Sure.
Is I guess you've probably talked pretty openly about what actually happened on the LSU deal a year ago. Sure. And I've said this on my radio show. I mean, it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Mike got played.
Yeah.
And I've tried to figure out why. And obviously that's not, nobody's going to speak just super openly about it. But I'm wondering if it's this. Baseball coaches in recruiting tend to operate on gentlemen's agreements, right?
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
You think about it in recruiting. Once you commit a guy, other programs, generally speaking,
they
stop recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are a couple of coaches in the current landscape that are challenging that model a little bit. Tony Vitello at Tennessee, chief among them. Maybe a couple of other guys, but largely baseball still operates in kind of a gentleman's agreement mentality. Football is a completely different animal. Until a kid is, by God, on your campus, in your gear, enrolled in class, he's open to anybody. It was only in the last, like I've tried to keep thinking, as I've said, how does that happen? How do you let yourself, I can't help but think that Mike Bianco's mentality was, we're doing this as a baseball job. And so we're going to play by gentlemen's rules. And Scott Woodward was like, I'm a football guy, man. I don't care about anything about what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Scott Woodward is a great human being. I don't think LSU fans care if he's a great human being or not. They want the best coaches, and they want only him to do what's best for LSU.
Sure.
Scott Woodward was simply placating some of the old guard LSU and interviewing Mike so that he could say, I did it. He strategically leaked that it happened. Mike, operating kind of under the gentleman's agreement, had been assured that it wouldn't be leaked. The second it happened, it was leaked. LSU fans reacted as Scott Woodward knew they would, and then he was able to go get his guy. And that's what happened there. I just hadn't thought about it that way until recently, because I have thought over and over and over in my head, how can you let yourself get into that? You can't go down that road. He thought he was getting the LSU job. He did.
He thought he was getting it, and I don't mean this in a way that Mike is some like naive, dumb person. He's a very intelligent human being, but he's pretty insulated. Mm-hmm. I don't think he even understood the landscape if we got out of the baseball environment a little bit. Yeah, I think you're right, but I think it's also more of he doesn't necessarily get involved in a bigger picture sports concept, in my opinion, to even sort of understand that those things could happen. And frankly, I'm not sure Mike, to this day, believes he did anything wrong by going and interviewing.
No, I would agree with that.
I think he believes he was fully justified in traveling to Birmingham and interviewing in that job. Because, we always say, hey, you can do Zooms and different things. Just don't get caught doing that. And I think he would disagree and think he was fully within his rights of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike would say I've spent 20 years. I've given everything I have. My alma mater, came calling, and it felt like a conversation that I had earned the right to have, and probably would point to the fact that could have had the LSU job a decade ago, but he and Skip in a place where we're in a place at that time where they're like, let's just not go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know that when Skip was making that hire, he was 100% sure that it was Mike. And I don't know Mike was 100% sure that leaving at Ole Miss was the right way. And so to avoid potentially souring their relationship with each other, I think when Skip Bertman hired, I guess was when he hired Paul Maneri.
It was Maneri. It was after Smoke the
They
Wall.
they just kind of agreed, you know what, let's not do this right now. And so I think for those reasons, I would agree that Mike Bianco thought that it was okay. And I mean, if you completely remove yourself from the situation, like you're outside, you're a Nebraska fan, and you're just reading all that happened, maybe you look at it and you go, I get why he would interview for that job, why he would have a conversation with that job. But when you're this close to it, if you're an Ole Miss fan,
mm-hmm.
if you're a Keith Carter critic, a Mike Bianco critic, just whatever, then you're looking at it completely differently. Going, oh, hell no, you can't do that. Hell no, you can't do that. If you go talk to them, by God, you better take that job.
Mm-hmm. And look, I'm not in the clubhouse.
And it didn't work that way this time, clearly.
Yeah, and look, I'm not in the clubhouse. I don't know either way, but at some point, it's probably players went, hang on, you were going to play for them. Like, it was at least a chasm there that maybe has been fixed. But if you're going to have any locker room issues at some point, it's at least under the realm of possibility that it starts there with the players going, okay, I get it, but really? The guys that we were in the dugout against, that's where you traveled to Birmingham on your way to the beach and did this or that. I don't know. There's so many elements there because while Mike might feel justified, the fan base has every right to be pissed off about it. I mean, it works from all sides. It's all good either way. And I guess that's where I'm getting is Keith had a very –
And the reality, Chase, is it would have been best for everybody if it had worked out last year.
Well, yes, that's my point. I mean, Keith had a very calculated deal if that does work out, where Dan McDonnell, I think, is the head coach at Ole Miss right now. I feel pretty damn certain that it would have been done. And I think that Mike taking the LSU job versus being fired would have been an extra grease point that would have been helpful in that situation, which is kind of where I'm going. Keith kind of gambled and lost. It's the worst case scenario now. Ole Miss is not playing well. Mike comes back, the whole deal. And we've spent an off season. We've spent a season right now kind of going, oh, well, it's Omaha or bust. And we all read the press release that had the new heights and the different stuff. And then we've talked to people. But am I crazy, or maybe not even crazy? I guess I'm sitting here today, and it's one of the reasons I text you about this in general is, are we jumping the gun a little bit that it's just some automatic, there's one black and white result that is necessary, or there is a change? It's a little more complicated than that, right?
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, if he goes 10-20, look, I fully believe there to be a change. But, and I'm just painting scenarios here for my point. I don't know that necessarily Keith told him, no, Mike, you've got to go to Omaha no matter what, or you're going to be fired next season. I have a hard time believing it was that cut and dry, given everything else. So I guess my point is, he goes 14-16. He gets into 3. He wins a regional and loses a super. Look, is that likely? No. I understand that. I get that that's probably crazy right now. But do you fire the guy? Just saying, is Keith Carter firing the guy that has lost 3 straight Sweet 16s? And maybe it's yes. I guess I'm just saying it's why. It's one of the reasons why I ask you, what are you talking about today? Because I don't think it's time for that conversation yet, even though it's heading down that path, is my point.
I would put my coaching hat on and say, or my Greg Sankey hat on and go, yeah, we don't really deal in hypotheticals.
Sure.
Here's where I think it is for Keith Carter.
Okay.
The reality, I mean, what? You've heard this. You've read this on your message board. They lose the series this weekend. You got to fire him. He should step down right now if he loses. That ain't happening.
No.
The season is going to finish. They're going to go to Hoover, or they are not going to go to Hoover. Keith Carter needs one of 2 things to happen. He needs Ole Miss baseball to play really, really, really well for the next 6 weeks. or he needs Ole Miss baseball to continue on the track that it's on.
Sure.
He doesn't need it to fall in between. He doesn't need them to go 14-16, which, by the way, that's 9-6.
That
over
still
the final
feels very
15.
complicated to get to. Yeah.
Because if they go 14-16 and win 2 games in Hoover and are a 3 seed in Dallas or wherever, and they win a regional, how about they win a regional opposite a super regional, a top 8 national seed upset, and they host a super regional? No, that's not the scenario, and then lose in a super regional.
Yeah, of course.
So where are you again? It doesn't need to be in the middle for Keith Carter. I feel, I said this to you earlier, I feel like we're watching this unfold in slow motion.
Sure.
And it feels at this point, and I hate this as an Ole Miss baseball fan, as somebody who loves college baseball, I hate to watch it end this way. And maybe it won't. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What have you seen, if you're being honest with yourself, that makes you feel like, you know what, the final 15 games are going to be really drastically different? Have they got a chance against Mississippi State? Absolutely. State's playing better than they have been.
Sure.
And State they got 3 good starts this weekend. Their bullpen's a disaster. They got some guys that can throw it out of the bullpen, including, and he's a wild card because he can't control it, Parker Stinnett, who's coming back to his hometown to possibly pitch.
Yeah.
Missouri's as scrappy as can be, and they are better. Missouri is better than they've been at any point in the last 6 years, period.
Yeah. A&M doesn't suck.
Texas A&M is playing better baseball than anybody thought, but guess what? Under Jim Schlossnagle, if you paid attention for the last 20 years, you should have expected that.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas, and you got to do it in Fayetteville, has kind of figured it out. That's for
LSU's the other one. They won Baton Rouge once since 1982.
And I don't know if you know this or not, but Ole Miss hasn't been great in Baton Rouge since 1982.
It's
said?
two.
I think.
Two.
Yeah.
Two.
Yes. You just heard that in stereo.
I did.
So, could Ole Miss win 2 out of 3 against State? Absolutely. Get one at Arkansas? Sure. Win the series against Missouri? Go crazy, man. Sweep Missouri. Possible? Yeah. Likely? Probably not. Get a game in Baton Rouge? That's kind of what they've done every year, right? They'll win one, but they don't win the series.
Get swept down there very often. They just don't win the series.
But then they've had some weird series with A&M. They had weird series where got swept here in Oxford, but went to their place and hit 1 million home runs, and it's warm and the wind's blowing out. I got no idea what happens in that series against Mike's best friend in coaching, who's now in the same division.
Yeah, and let me reiterate, I wasn't saying that Mike shouldn't be replaced. I was just saying it feels like there's a potential for a middle ground somewhere eventually. And look, let's be honest, kind of going full circle. Maybe I'm being clouded over a little bit by the lack of anything in basketball and the way that appears to be a train wreck moving forward. Maybe I've gotten my head a little bit and start comparing sports that is not necessarily a fair thing because.
Yeah, but I think now fans want immediate reaction, right? They want Kermit Davis fired right now.
Sure.
Because they look at next year and they go, next year is not going to be any better. And so all you're doing is wasting a year. I think Keith Carter has shown his hand in so much as he's telling you, no, I'm not going to make a knee-jerk reaction. I'm going to stand behind my coaches. But when it's time to make the decision, I'll make the decision. I think if you're a coach, you feel like that's fair, right? You have the conversation with your AD where one bad season and you're out. No, that's not how it is. But you sit down and you have that meeting and he says, look, you're smart. You know these results aren't good enough. You got a year. You got to be better next year. You got to be significantly better next year. And if you're not, it's not going to be a fun conversation.
Money.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not firing you today either. I don't want – Keith Carter wants to keep Kermit Davis. He wants to keep Mike Bianco. because it means stability and it means they're winning.
Mm-hmm. Baseball.
And you sit here, yeah, they are. And baseball is going to sell a lot of tickets next year, whether Mike Bianco is the coach or Dan McDonnell's the coach or, Yogi Berra is the coach. I don't think that's a possibility.
I don't. I get asked, I don't know, hell, once a week right now, given what's going on, where is the Ole Miss baseball job in the SEC? And I'll start rattling off where I think it is, all things considered. And I've got it 7th to 9th in the league, depending on where you want to factor in a couple things. And when I say that, I mean if every job was open and I'm a coach and I said, you get to go down the list and pick your SEC job that I want to take. Okay. I want Vanderbilt. I want Florida. I want LSU. I want Georgia. I want Arkansas. I want Mississippi State. I want South Carolina, and then I want Ole Miss or A&M.
You want South Carolina over Ole Miss?
I'm not as sure of their scholarship deals. We could bump Ole Miss up over them if you want to. I'm not as well versed on their increased scholarship situation versus Mississippi. Sure. But I don't know how you get them in that top 6 or whatever above those other schools.
Are we convinced that Vandy does what they do for Tim Corbin for anybody else?
They're winning, and it's the only thing they win out, and they really like it. So I think they would continue to do it unless that program fell to a point that they did not feel justified in doing so.
Stanford won at a big level, and then Stanford kind of came back to earth, and now they've gotten good again.
They have. Rice is trying to figure it out right now.
I got a mess.
Yeah, I know.
TCU. I mean, it's remarkable what TCU has done because TCU does not help
Correct.
baseball the way some of those other programs do. And it's like $60,000 a year for the reason that Schloss left TCU.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you haven't included Texas and Oklahoma as part of the SEC yet either.
That's fair. Behind Texas, I'll put it ahead of Oklahoma. Point being, though, what does that really matter? Really, frankly, your league standing as far as a job, you're not competing against all those jobs. They're not all open. It's irrelevant. You're paying. I mean, according to that ADU thing right now, Ole Miss is paying Mike Bianco the second most of any coach in the country. Is that exactly right? I don't know, but whatever. Let's say it's
1.45. Is that?
Yeah, it's 148, 145, 14 something. Tim Corbin's the only one ahead. Right, wrong, and different. I don't know. Anyway, it's top 5, however you want to phrase it. They're going to pay a ton of money. I don't know if they're going to pay 145 to the next guy, but they're not going to fall down to 600,000 for the next coach either. Obviously, they're going to stay committed from a program standpoint, and somebody's going to take this job. So it is a really good job. The question is, are you hitting what in your minds is one of those 2 or 3 guys that you feel like is absolutely not a fall off, or are you just rolling the dice and seeing what you can get at that point? And because look, Texas got told no like 7 times when they hired David Pierce. And part of that is because baseball, maybe a lot more than other sports, those coaches crave kind of their program and stability, and they're not as likely as other sports for whatever reason to jump ship. I don't know why that is. Maybe you have an answer, but you don't see that as much. And unless things are going really poorly. And it's one of the reasons why I thought Ole Miss, and look, maybe they get Dan McDonnell, maybe Keith wants him, maybe he doesn't want him, hell, I don't know. But it's one of the reasons why I thought they had a better chance last year than this year, is that he had kind of a weird year. He was pissed off about the attendance situations around COVID. And there was just a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, Tom Jurich isn't there anymore to really funnel money into that program that they don't make back. There was a lot of stuff, but you've kind of allowed another year to pass for maybe Dan's not as pissed off anymore at the end of 2022. Maybe he is. I don't know. I haven't talked to him. But it's an interesting deal of, if you're Butch Thompson, do you leave Auburn for Ole Miss?
Yes.
I mean, I think so too. It's a better version of the job you're in. But I think there are a few coaches like that.
And a guy who has a massive affinity for the state of Mississippi.
Sure.
Not to mention just being one of the great human beings alive.
Sure.
I mean, on the McDonald thing, I don't know. I mean, Louisville's a mess. Louisville's a mess as a city. Louisville is a mess as a university, and they're a mess as an athletics department. And it's been really unstable.
So you take the job, you're 90 miles, you got to play him, but you're 90 miles from your best friend in the world, your godchildren. I don't know.
I don't know that matters. I mean,
it's not a negative, is my point.
You can thank Dan McDonnell for Chris Lemonis being the head baseball coach at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
He told John Cohen, "I'm not your guy, but this is. Go get it." And Cohen did, ultimately. I don't know. It feels like going down this road of, okay, well, what's your hot board? Who are your names? Like, it's got to play out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I'm just being honest. I like Mike. I have a good relationship with him, or did, at least before you and I had this conversation.
I mean, me too. He seems to dislike me less than he does most reporters.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to figure out not too terribly long ago how many times I've interviewed him. And it's probably in the 500 range. And that's different because of the radio stuff. And so it was like, after every single game, 60 times a year for 3 straight years. And it's 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row now where Mike has joined us on the radio every single Monday. So there's a relationship there. And, locally through some charity things that we've worked on together. And I want Mike Bianco to succeed. I like him. I like his family. Think the world of Cammie. I mean, absolutely think the world of her. And so that's what makes it hard, right? It may be harder living in a small town than if you live in a place like Nashville or Lexington, and you probably don't have relationships directly with coaches and their families, in a bigger city setting. But, and frankly, this conversation is not any different than the one with Kermit. I mean, Kermit Davis is loved here because he and his family have engaged in the Oxford community, and they've been part of all the things that are going on.
Yeah.
The reality is, if Mike's the second highest baseball coach in America, it's not because he's, a great ambassador for the Oxford Chamber of Commerce. It's to win baseball games. Yeah. If Kermit Davis is making $3 million a year, it's not because he's a good neighbor in his neighborhood and, he's fun to have on your scramble team. It's to go win basketball games and to get to the tournament and then make some noise when you get there. So I understand why we are where we are. And I think we've kind of gotten to the point where what the Chase, if it doesn't turn around, there's only one outcome.
Sure.
And that's that they go a new direction.
Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily even hot-boarded or anything like that. I know you don't necessarily think it was. I'm just kind of reiterating for the people listening. It was more of somebody is going to take this job. A really good baseball coach is going to say yes to the University of Mississippi coach's baseball team. Whether that's Eric Backich,
you know what?
Butch Thompson, or whomever the hell it is.
Going back to the thing earlier about the whole, well, what if you don't get somebody that's as good? And that being a loser's mentality. Here's the nasty truth. There are a lot of really good baseball coaches out there. There are 300 Division I jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody talks Tony Vitello. You're probably not getting Tony Vitello. You know what the big secret about Tennessee baseball is? Frank Anderson, the other guy who got ejected on Friday, he's the guy that runs that program on the day-to-day. Tony Vitello misses a lot of Tennessee baseball practice. You know why? Because he's out recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't send his guys out. He goes out, especially in the fall. Less so probably in the spring and in season. But Frank Anderson runs that program on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if the events of the weekend change how you look at Tony Vitello or not. I mean, obviously that's the hottest name in college baseball because of what Tennessee is doing. How happy is he? Is there a number that you throw at a guy like that?
I don't feel like Ole Miss should pay its baseball coach $2 million. I don't.
Well, let me ask you why. Because you're paying your women's basketball coach $1 million to lose $7 million a year as a program. And you got your baseball program out here drawing 9 times more people per game, generating revenue, being relevant nationally on a year in, year out basis. So why is it that you should?
Okay, okay, let's do it this way. And I'm not avoiding your question. I'm not trying to do some red herring thing. Let's do it this way. If you decide, you know what, we're gonna make Tony Vitello the highest paid coach in the country, and he's going to come coach Ole Miss, and that is
or whomever.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. What are you basing? What is the standard or the baseline of success required to do that? Because I feel like Ole Miss is a program that absolutely should have been in the College World Series more over the last 22 years as they have. There's no doubt about that. And maybe it's just in the conversation over year and year. But and again, I don't want to have the scholarship conversation because people hear that word and they freak the hell out. So I'm trying to avoid that. But I also don't believe you're going to put Vanderbilt classes together year over year over year over year and build a 35-man roster full of that level of talent, which maybe you got to coach it up and develop it, and you got to look like Mike did from 04 to 09. I don't know. I just wonder, are you going to pay $2 million a year for 1 out of 4, 2 out of 6, 3 out of 5? I don't know. I don't know how the ceiling matches the salary at a certain point. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, you
all right. So your 1 out of 5 number.
Yeah.
We're not having this conversation today if it's 1 out of 5.
Oh, well, not even close. No, there's a big statue in front of the stadium right now.
I mean, 4 trips to Omaha in the last 22 years, 21 years, 20 years because of COVID. We're not having the conversation at all. But because it's.
And I think I'm agreeing with you the more I'm talking, or at least coming around to it. But you're going to be more impatient with that guy.
Sure.
You got to fix it quickly.
No doubt. I mean, I don't think you expect it to be a 1-year turnaround, but if that's the route you're going to go, I suppose my question would be, why not?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not Keith Carter. I don't have to write the check. That's fair. But I know their budget's $130 million.
Well, and it makes
as a department,
even.
And it's about to be $150 million in 4 years. I mean,
so an extra $300,000 to not get the coach seems kind of stupid, doesn't it?
I mean, if that's your guy.
And now, look, I'm not sure. No, I don't want people to get caught in the weeds here. I don't even know that Tony Vitello takes the job for 2.5. I have no idea. I know nothing about Tony Vitello and his coaching interest.
You know what's going to be fascinating to me?
So
is if you go out and hire, I mean, this is so hypothetical, right? This is Ole Miss moves on from Mike Bianco and they go, let me use a Scott Woodward phrase. They go big game hunting.
Yeah.
And they're going to pay whatever they got to pay to get whoever their guy is. And he goes, hey, tell me about this expansion that you're about to start. Well, this is kind of the rough plans. And now when's that starting? It's part of a bigger project, 3 or 4 years. No, I don't think we're going to wait 3 or 4 years on that. Does this push forward the timeline on the next round of upgrades to Swayze?
I don't know.
By the way,
go ahead,
is going to take you to $80 million invested in Swayze Field over the last 16 years.
Is it really 80? Okay. I had not done that math. I don't know that it can, because they're already having supply chain issues and money issues with the Manning Center. So at some point, there's no way to do that. Like, I understand what you're saying, and it's a good hypothetical, and it's an interesting topic. But they're having a hard time staying on schedule for something that is much more important and time sensitive with the Manning Center and the football stadium. So it might just be one of those, hey, look, you got one of the top facilities in the league, and it just is what it is, bud. Here's $1.5 million, and enjoy your 10,000 people per game and your really nice indoor, and call it like it is. And the big circus tent out there is just going to have to hang out for a couple of years, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Which, by the way, when it's full, is not that bad.
It's fine. It's easy to make fun of, but it's really not that bad. It's fine. Yeah.
It's, I don't know that I would have named it 4111. I probably would have just put a big logo on there that said Ole Miss Baseball. But aside from that, I got no issue with it.
And what they did, and while it does make sense financially, is those people are getting their placeholders for when it is a permanent structure.
Yeah.
And you've already got it built in and it's whatever. And I understand that. And it's generating.
Well, when you have people beating down the door saying, let me give you money, and you're like, well, I mean, we could do this. And they're like, okay, sure. Do it. Or show me the other way to generate an extra $250,000 for the program this year.
Sure.
Like, I'll take that tent down if you want to write me a check for $250,000.
Sure.
Actually, we'll say after rental fees and cost of putting it up, you write me a check for $200,000, we'll take it down.
Yeah, nobody's cutting that check.
But by golly, let's make fun of it. I mean, let's make fun of it. Let's not say, wow, it really is incredible that Ole Miss is one of the few programs in the country that can put a hospitality tent 450 feet from home plate and generate $250,000 revenue with 3 months notice. Nobody wants to look at it that way. They would just be like, oh, it's ugly. Shut up. Sorry, Dylan.
And it shows you that, look, you can't suck. But if Ole Miss baseball is competitive, it's going to sell out and fill up every season, no matter who the coach is.
Because it's an event. It's turned into an event.
There's not a ton other to do. All the stuff.
Remember when weather used to be good during baseball season?
Yeah, it's gone. Everything's moving like back a month now.
Yeah.
Takes longer to get there for like a month. If this is it, and this is the crazy hypothetical, but I mean, hell, you know him better than I do. What's Mike do? Mike wanted to coach more. Mike told me 2 falls ago he would like to be a college baseball coach 10 more seasons.
I'll just throw it out there.
I've got mine.
Go Kentucky.
Well, until I think he saved his job, I was going to say Alabama.
I think Mike Bianco at Kentucky is. I mean, if Mitch Barnhart could hire Mike Bianco, do you not think he would do so in a second?
Would Ray Tanner hire Mike Bianco? They're buds. He called Ray Tanner on his first day on the job and said, who do I hire? And Ray Tanner said, Dan McDonnell.
Well, it certainly couldn't be any worse at South Carolina.
It's a program
that's been
forget they won 2 titles in a row because they suck.
Yeah.
I do think he coaches somewhere. I don't think he's done.
Does he take a year off?
Maybe, and in baseball you could do that. And I think he gets a good job. I've heard people say it. I don't think he has to go down a level or anything like that. Hell, he's an accomplished baseball coach.
By the way, the second this season ends, things get really busy for Mike Bianco.
Team USA.
He's the manager of Team USA this summer.
He is.
Which makes this an even stranger potential situation.
Because you're firing the head coach of Team USA?
It's kind of an odd look, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, that's not affecting your pool.
No. It doesn't affect what you do.
And it was smart for him because it also gets you around a bunch of dudes that might be transferring out of their schools. And Ole Miss needs transfer portal help because they don't have a lot of money left over for portal. It's the other kind of negative of the scholarship thing is that they allot all their money because they don't have a ton of it to 4-year guys or junior college guys. And if they don't have crazy roster turnover, they don't have a lot of money for the portal. Just a thing, but whatever.
You not have $1 million sitting in the slush fund for NIL for baseball?
Not quite. You
want to transform a roster in baseball? There's your ticket because that's not being done right now. But you got a few places that are doing a little bit in terms of NIL for baseball.
That state supporter, is he still trying to do that thing that started like 6, 9, 12 months ago?
Yeah, I don't think that
didn't take off.
I don't think that happened.
Okay.
I think that has been shuttered.
You've given me more time than I thought. Last thing before I let you go. Where's Lane Burroughs' next job? And how far is Jake Gautreau from being a head coach? While I'm asking questions.
Huh. Somebody's going to hire Jake Gautreau, and they're going to be glad they did.
He's going to be. Ole Miss can't hire Jake Gautreau, but he's going to be one hell of a college baseball coach.
I don't think Lane Burroughs is a guy that I don't think that's a splashy enough name. Done some good things. I know. I understand.
I mean, would Tony Vitello splashy out of Arkansas necessarily? Was the baseball guys, but I mean, he was a hitting coach.
All right, give me the most random college baseball coaching name that is a great coach that if Keith Carter hired him, people would be like, what's this moron thinking? But would end up being a fantastic hire. I've got mine.
Okay,
it's not yours.
Okay, I've got an answer to that, but then before I do that, I think Eric Bakich would do a really good job at Ole Miss if you could get Eric Bakich. But he's been to a College World Series final. That doesn't count. Chris Pollard.
They have taken a little bit of a step back.
He's at Michigan. I'm not faulting him for
it.
Okay. Chris Pollard, Duke.
At Duke?
Yeah.
Okay. Jim Penders at UConn.
That's your guy. You've been telling me this for years. You like Jim Penders.
Really good baseball coach and a great pitching coach. Now, maybe their pitching coach gets the head coaching job at UConn. I don't know. Yeah, I have. I have mentioned Penders to you before.
Yeah. Why is he still there?
Good question. Kind of a grinder. Loyal. Had a lot of success.
I don't think he would take it.
Went to school there.
Yeah. And I got a little – that name got thrown to me with Pollard, and I got to thinking about it, and I like it more today than when I first heard it. Somebody on the board actually giving them credit said that, and that kind of stuck with me. The guy that I thought would be really good here, but honestly I don't think he would take the job, is Dan Hefner.
At Dallas Baptist?
Yeah. But from talking to people, he wants to stay in the Metroplex, and he would like to stay at a religious institution.
Did they get swept by Bradley this weekend?
I haven't.
I know they lost Thursday.
I mean, look, okay, I don't know. So
not that you're making a decision based on a weekend series results. Let me be the one to really ruffle the feathers then.
Okay.
We're so far down this road now. What about Scott Berry?
You would know more than me. I mean, I get asked that a lot, and to be honest, I've never spoken to the man except for after Ole Miss Southern Miss baseball games. I have no idea.
Scott Berry might be my favorite person in baseball.
Okay.
He just, I think he is a great human being. I think he's an incredible baseball coach. I don't know how much longer he wants to go. He and I have never talked about that. I think he's closing in on 60. And so maybe that's, I just look at what he has accomplished without the resources that would be available to him here, and go, whew, what might that look like if he didn't have, because I don't think that would change who he is or how he coaches.
Sure.
But I do think it would be a different deal.
A better version of the same thing.
I mean, one would think, and their version's been pretty darn good. He got a really good pitching coach too in Ozzie.
Yeah.
Ostrander's done a great job.
Yeah. That's been not a secret, but that's been the other part of that for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know.
And look, it can be something like that. I mean, there's no guarantee it's just Dan or Cliff. I mean, that's too short-sighted.
Why does the Cliff thing feel weird to me? Like that's not happening.
Look, and I mean, this will probably get used against me at one point if Cliff Godwin's the coach. Cliff's one of my best friends in the profession. It would obviously not be bad for me personally or professionally. I wouldn't hire Cliff unless I got pretty far down the list. I think there's a chance that Cliff relates better with a mid-major team or than a team that recruits a lot of top 100 athletes. Could be completely wrong. I mean, he could go to Omaha 9 times in a row at Ole Miss, but my gut feeling is that he coaches in a way, unless you put your staff together a certain way to kind of move around that he is better coaching a roster with a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, it's a hard-edged chip on his shoulder thing. And I did their super regional a couple of years ago when they were at Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, very clear and talked to him when it was in Oxford, you know, when they've come here a couple of times also. I know you are close with him, but that's a good characterization there.
Yeah. He also bunts a lot. A whole lot.
That'd be well received.
Yeah, he's a big bunter, big time bunter.
So was Augie Garita. Worked out okay for him.
Oh, look at you. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of saw that in person.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. Okay.
Can I be on the record as saying?
Oh, feel free.
I want Mike Bianco to go 13-2 in the next 15 games.
You can. Just to make that clear, real quick, before we get done.
13-5. That gets you to 18-12.
You're back in the hosting national seed, right? Baby. Here we go. Okay.
That's a top 8.
Yeah.
You go 13-2 in the next these next 15.
Yeah.
How does this weekend play out? By the way, 4 in a row against Mississippi State starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Tuesday.
My prediction is they go 2-2, but lose 2 of the 3 on the weekend. The selection committee considers the Governor's Cup an SEC game, so technically that's just 2-2.
Yeah.
It won't be to the fan base, but just saying from a selection committee standpoint. I think State has a little more of an identity than Ole Miss right now. I think that's Ole Miss's problem is even offensively, I just don't think they have an identity. You've got players asking the fans to stick with them through media interviews, a little bit of a weird deal there. If State comes in with energy, Ole Miss is going to have to play really well. That is my guess.
I mean, this is the weekend for Ole Miss to kind of hook its fan base and get them to hang with them.
Yeah, either way. Yeah, sure. You win the series and, go to Arkansas, don't get swept, come back, beat Missouri. You can keep the fan base active. You can do that.
Yeah.
But they're going to start counting wins. At some point, you got to get to 13, you got to get to 14 because their RPI is 55 today. 55 is a long way from 40. There's been one team outside the top 40 get into the NCAA tournaments on an at-large bid since 2008 in the SEC with a under 500 record. One.
Yeah.
A&M in 2014, and they had a 10-10 record against the top 25. Ole Miss doesn't have that. Ole Miss has 0 wins against the top 25 currently. Right. They're 0-4.
Got some opportunity in the next 5 weeks, though.
They do. And they get Southern Miss on the road. It's an RPI game.
Yeah.
So they have that as well. So
where's Southern Miss? Are they still top 10?
RPI, they're at 13. I don't know what they're ranked, but their RPI is 13. So I know you can do this for several more hours here later in the day. So appreciate it, bud. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
That was Richard Cross. There, you can see Tyler Siskey here. I'll take Tyler off the camera for a minute because I've got to pay a few bills here. Sorry about that, but I'm making sure it worked, and it was. So it was Richard Cross along with Chase Parham talking about the Ole Miss Mississippi State series, Ole Miss baseball, and more. Tyler Siskey with QwikRecruiting is going to join in just a moment. You saw him there. He's here in the Clark Ford Studios. First, I want to tell you about some of the people that make this show possible. Game Changer Patches, the only 2-patch system available in the market to stop hangovers before they start. The warm-up patch used before or while you drink. The overtime patch used after you've been drinking to recover while you sleep. The all-natural ingredients keep you in the game, ready for the next play. Go to GameChangerPatch.com, promo code RebelGrove20 at checkout. Get 20% off your purchase. ACS is owned by my buddy Clay McNutt in Baldwin, Mississippi. It's a complete electrical control system solution provider and a Rockwell Automation recognized system integrator. They've got a full-time dedicated emergency service and troubleshooting staff and a UL 508A panel shop. They can custom tailor software packages, custom design electrical control panel solutions, and so much more. They can service and install Rockwell Automation, Allen Bradley, Siemens, ABB, Square D, many other manufacturers. To get in touch with them, go to acsllcms.com or call 662-601-4381. Brought to you by Lammon's Fine Jewelry. Lammon's at 1126 North Lamar Boulevard in Oxford. They've been serving the Oxford area for 3/4 of a century. Whether you're looking for engagement rings, wedding rings, fine jewelry, watches, pearls, fashion jewelry, children's jewelry, collectibles, more, Lammon's is the gold standard in fine jewelry. So visit them at lammonsfinejewelry.com or call them at 662-234-2777. College Corner's your one-stop Rebel Shop, 2 locations in the Jackson area. In Ridgeland, it's next to Fleet Feet. In Flowood, it's next to Half Shell. If you don't live in Jackson, just go to collegecornerstore.com. Plus, you can find them on Facebook and Instagram. We've got a Mind on My Money podcast up on the MPW digital feed. That's brought to you by Pinnacle. Pinnacle provides detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and so much more. At Pinnacle, investing is treated like a commodity. Decisions are made using objective information and research, not emotions. So regardless of your level of wealth, Pinnacle's going to sit down with you, listen to your goals, study your expenses, and put forth a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan built just for you. It's mypinnwealth.com, MYPINN wealth.com. And we're brought to you by John Edwards, Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. If you're thinking about traveling this summer, planning a holiday trip, here's what I recommend you do. Get in touch with John, give him some parameters, give him a budget, and then just sit back. Do nothing. He's going to come up with all sorts of plans for you, as detailed or as simple as you'd like. You don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services either. Just call 901-494-3387 or hit him up at jedwards at regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. Listen, a lot of you coming up this weekend, make sure you stop by Opa, Oxford's newest restaurant on the square. Delicious menu featuring gyros, wraps, kebabs, fresh redfish, lamb chops, handcrafted cocktails, frozen libations, and amazing candlelit patio. All of that at 306 South Lamar, just south of the Square Courthouse in Oxford. As I was telling you, and I'll get to that screen here. Got a lot of things going on my page here. Got it done. There it goes. Tyler Siskey with Quick Recruiting, the CEO of Quick Recruiting. Got a lot going on there. Kind enough to join in the Clark Ford Studios. Tyler, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I am good. Appreciate you stopping in. Say hello. So you and I talk a lot about all sorts of stuff anyway, and I told you this the other day, that there are a handful of people that when they speak, I kind of listen to them because they don't have anything to lose anymore. And Nick Saban's one of those people. I mean, he's won 600 championships or whatever. I mean, if Nick Saban, I told you a minute ago, if Nick Saban went 8-4 and retired in the next 2 years, he goes down as the greatest coach ever. So he would have to do something scandalous to affect his reputation. And given that, when he talks about things, big picture things like NIL and such, I sort of listen, right? I mean, right. This isn't a knock at Lane Kiffin at all, because I listen to Lane too, because Lane's just kind of frank, kind of unfiltered. But Lane's still not even 50 yet. Lane still has years left coaching. Lane still has things he wants to win, things he hasn't accomplished that he wants to do. And so sometimes when you hear him talk about it, you do have to at least contemplate the thought that, well, some of this is self-serving. And,
right.
And who could blame him, right? That's not a criticism. In the same way that when Jimbo Fisher talks about it, like, ain't no big deal. I'm like, okay, well, you're the one benefiting from it, so I have to take that into consideration too, and there's a lot of heat on Jimbo to win and that kind of thing. So, I'm listening. And but it's different when Saban talks about it. And Saban's talked about NIL a lot, dating back to, I guess, the morning of or the day before the national championship game against Georgia back in January. He's been carefully critical of it. He has been, seems to be advocating for limits on it, yet like Lane Kiffin, can't really come up with a way to do that, and I don't know either. But you've worked for Nick Saban. You've been in that building. You've been with him on recruiting trips and all of those things. When you hear him talk about NIL, what are your thoughts as someone who knows the business, even though you got out of it before NIL kicked in? But and now you know everybody because you're talking to Cincinnati and Western Michigan and LSU and right. Akron and everybody else under the damn sun. You know everybody. So what are people saying? And when you hear Saban talk about it, what are your thoughts?
Well, you brought up something very interesting. I don't think a lot of people think about. When Lane complains about NIL and Nick complains about NIL, they both have one thing in common. They were both NFL head coaches, and so they know what's coming.
It's a great point.
And so they understand free agency and they understand salary caps. They understand all those things and problems I'm sure we'll talk about here in a little bit with NIL. But, Nick, every time that he says something like that in the media, he's trying to get a message out there. And I talked about on the podcast the other day, I wish more of them would say it. It's going to take Lane to keep talking. It's going to take Nick to keep talking to create change. Change has to occur because this is not getting better. And just like we talked about, I think last time I was over here, people think this thing's going to slow down and it's going to catch up. It's getting worse daily. And, I think everybody's starting to realize what the problems are, and there's becoming haves and have-nots real quick because of the money that they have in NIL.
So Alabama, people think about it as this, and I covered Alabama indirectly when I was covering Auburn and then when I was covering the SEC and in Mobile, and so I've certainly been in that state. And I was in that state when Saban was hired. I know the landscape that had to happen for Saban to take that job. And you see the incredible success that he's had and the recruiting success that he's had. There's a perception that they just have an endless amount of money. And yet if you talk to industry people, they'll tell you, no, Alabama's not – they're not one of the have-nots, but they're not one of the elite haves either. They don't have Texas's money. They don't have Texas A&M's money, USC's money, Miami's money maybe even right now. Oregon's money perhaps is one of the ones that's really popping up a lot when you have conversations with people. So where does Alabama fall in sort of the pecking order with NIL as this thing gets – because I think it's kind of starting to get weird.
Yeah, so I think, especially, well, guess what fans see is when you look at, okay, who has a lot of NIL money? It's the private booster money, and no, they do not have as much as, every Texas school. I mean, you could probably make an argument that Rice is going to have more private booster money. It's just a matter if they're going to have access to it. I think where Alabama is still okay, I think when you're going to have LSU is going to be okay, is what we were talking about earlier, is with the collectives. Because brands are still going to want to associate with Alabama, with LSU, with those blue blood schools, even if they don't have that money. So from a collective standpoint, they're actually going to have more than, say, probably even a Texas A&M collective. But it's the private booster money going into that. That's where they're not going to have as much. So I think it'll all wash out there. But you're dead on. They're not going to have – I mean, I don't even know where I would say in the pecking order, but they're not up where the schools that you just mentioned. Not even close.
When you talk to people around the country, and you talk to, the recruiting departments of a whole bunch of schools. I don't want to get into your business too much and ruin your announcements, but
we're just doing one a week.
Yeah, I know.
We'll stretch these bad boys out to
I'm aware.
End of the year.
But when you do them, you're talking to these guys. I know you're selling your business and stuff, but you're having small talk too. When you talk about NIL, transfer portal stuff, how much has the business changed in just 2 years?
Well, a ton, because the people that are running recruiting departments right now were probably cutting up film 3 years ago, and all of us old heads are getting out. And matter of fact, I guess it's public. We hired at our place Dave Shoemate, who was the director of player personnel at Central Florida. He just left that to come work here for us. He just moved to Oxford, and so a lot of people, I get phone calls daily about guys trying to get out because of the portal, NIL, and it's just nonstop job right now. I mean, it's nonstop. The biggest issue that a lot of recruiting departments are having right now with NIL is what was $50,000. What $50,000 could buy you 6 months ago now costs $1 million. NIL is getting out of hand. The market's been set, quote unquote. I guess we can put quotes on that.
Yeah.
And they don't. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, we got transfer quarterbacks going for $1 million.
Yeah, so that's what I want to get into, because this is where you played, you've been on the field coach, you've been a recruiting director, you've sort of seen all this, head coaches and stuff, locker room dynamics. So first of all, hey, kudos to Nico Iamaleava for getting what he got. I mean, none of this is a criticism. Get it.
Get it while you can get it.
Yeah,
brother.
Get it, bud. Go for it. Cool. Good for you. There's talk that Arch Manning's going to get more than that, and he probably will.
About $2.5 million more if you just want to get specific.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So now, here's what's interesting. So there's some other quarterbacks We'll start with quarterbacks, and then because I'm going to take this, we'll take this down a path a little bit. There are other quarterbacks that go, okay. So I see how this works in the real world in sports, right? If Carlos Correa gets $35 million a year, and the next best shortstop gets 32, Dansby Swanson goes, all right, look, I'm not Correa. I got that. But I won a ring, and I put up these numbers and these numbers and these numbers, and if you do a percentage, that means I'm worth $27 million. And he goes, and if the Braves go, I don't know about that, dude. Thanks for all you did. He goes, okay, I just need one of the other 29 teams to think I'm worth it. And if I am, I am. And so I hate to bring up a name here because it's not fair to the kid, but all of these kids, the high-ranked kids, with a rare exception here and there, they have people that are around them, family, obviously.
Yes, they do.
They have coaches, 7-on-7 guys, essentially agents. And those agents are going to the collectives and saying, all right, I've got so-and-so, and maybe he's not Nico, maybe he's not Arch, but he's close. You can't get Nico, and you can't get Arch, but you could get him, and it's going to cost X. And these collectives are going, man, this is insane.
It is.
So how do you as a coaching staff, and I know coaches can't talk about it, give you a break. How do you decide, yeah, that's worth doing. That's worth going down that road, because you know where I'm going with this. Let's pick on Nico here. We just gave him – look, I think Nico's going to be a great quarterback.
Okay.
I really do. I think in the end he's probably worth it. But he's made of flesh and blood. Say he gets hurt. Say he gets in trouble. Say he can't handle the pressure, can't handle the lights, can't handle the scrutiny that comes with being the quarterback at Tennessee. Can't handle the heat that you get when you get beat by Alabama 38-13 and you threw 4 picks, and now everybody's saying overrated, undependable, not worth it, bust. And you got to turn around that next week and you got to go to Fayetteville or whatever the case may be, right? You got to go play Auburn or whatever. That's pressure, and you know that. You recruit kids. You don't know what – there's a jump from, hey, I played at Madison Central to I'm going to go play at Florida.
Small.
Yeah, just a moment there. And they're kids. What happens the first time that one of these kids do bust? Like I have a Shea Patterson bust. Yeah. Where and Shea was okay.
He would have got paid. He's a great example.
Big time.
Big time.
But let's say that you paid Shea Nico money, and then Nico has a Shea career, which was just fine. It wasn't very good. It was very average. You have that career. What happens? What's the fallout inside a building?
So you got 2 major issues with that. One is coaches are already getting fired at a rapid rate.
Yeah.
This is just going to add to it. That's all it's going to do is add to it. Because you're the coach that wanted, player X. I got $8 million invested in him, or $10.5 million, $10 million, whatever it is. And first of all, you're going to have to play the guy. Okay? You got to play the guy. You can't bring in there's no booster that's going to pay $8 million for a quarterback to sit on the bench. That's not happening.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of if you signed Dansby Swanson to the $27 million contract.
He's got to be starting.
He's your shortstop for the next 6-7 years.
Correct. So when he doesn't work out, if he does not working out, you're getting fired because you're losing, or if you got to go play the best guy who may not be on the payroll, but you got to go pay the best guy. Okay, when that happens, you're going to get fired because you're not using your money wisely. Or a booster that's the guys that are paying that kind of money are usually your really, really, really big boosters. They're going to disassociate. Now you're not going to have that money because it's a single source of money. That's going to be problem 1. Problem 2, and I think that's what you're alluding to, is the dynamic and chemistry inside of a locker room.
Yeah.
So I don't want to name names. I'm very close. I will put it like that. Very close with a very elite, I guess, a NIL agent. That's a marketing agent. And one thing he does, and I think it's ingenious, is he makes whatever a player makes. Player makes $1 million. In his contract, half of his money goes, they split it amongst the teammates to prevent.
Oh.
To prevent
that dynamic. Right.
And I think that's really smart because if you got, you got the offense.
That's not going to happen across the board.
Not going to happen across the board.
Okay.
And but I think that's very wise to do. because of exactly what we're talking about. You're going to have certain, at the end of the day, we can talk about whatever we want to. The quarterbacks is who's going to make the real money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's not going to be the defensive lineman. You know, McKinley Jackson would not have the same value as, whoever, quarterback. They're not. Quarterbacks are going to set the market. They're always going to be the high-paying guys. And so
they're the face of the franchise.
Face of the franchise, just like the NFL. That's
sure.
who gets paid.
That's the reason I use the term.
But they're not going to, in the NFL, those defensive tackles or left tackles, they're getting paid too. It's not the same in college. The quarterback's getting 90% of the money being distributed. And so that's where you're going to have some jealousy issues, some chemistry issues. There's no way to prevent it unless you split it equally amongst everybody. And that's why I think Nick's upset about the model being flawed. I think that's just one part of it. But that's the issue, and you got to have a really good collective to prevent that.
Yeah, it's really kind of fascinating to see how it's just developed, how much it's changed in just a few months even. As the market, it's where I think Lane is exactly right. Now, I don't know how you get there with college, right? With the NFL, you have a salary cap, you have collective bargaining, you have contracts, they're employees, obviously. So when you sign Jamar Chase to a 5-year deal, what's a 5-year deal? It's structured,
unless you cut him.
Right. But you understand what I'm saying. I mean, when you sign Patrick Mahomes to a new deal, a certain amount of it is guaranteed. Even if you cut him,
Correct.
Even if you go, you suck, we're out, done, you still walk with X million. You don't have that at the college level. It's there is no structure. They're not employees. You have Title IX issues that you have to deal with. And I think this is where Lane's right, where he says if it's just the wild, wild west, it's kind of hard to navigate it.
Very difficult. And then so I'm not going to name the quarterback, but there's a quarterback that's being shopped right now. And so how things are getting set up is they're saying, okay, when you see the numbers come out, so let's say allegedly Arch is getting $10 million, right? So,
well, that's the number that's out there.
I said allegedly. I'm just trying to be alleged. So 5 of that, it's usually half of that number is, well, of all these numbers you're seeing, half of it is usually guaranteed, okay? The other is based on how much you participate and how much out of the collective and how much you're getting for Coca-Cola, whatever you're doing for them. Your max, it's almost like your max performance bonuses and all that stuff is what the big number is. But here's the problem is, all right, so let's say that the kid is getting $10 million. They're setting up these deals to where, okay, hey, we're not giving you, you're getting so much up front, okay, so we've agreed to give you $1 million up front.
Signing bonus.
Year 1, you're going to get X amount. Year 2, you're going to get X amount. Year 3, you're going to get X amount. Year 4, you're going to get X amount, yada, yada, yada. Let's say the kid is a bust. They're setting these things up so the kid doesn't go in the portal. That's what they're setting this up for.
Right.
All right? So let's say the kid is a bust. As a coach, you want this guy out the door because you don't want to have to pay a dude $2 million this next year because he's sitting on the bench.
Right.
Very similar to professional sports. So what happened to Amari Cooper in Dallas going to – because he was owed $20-something million roster bonus going to wherever, Cleveland. All right, so when the kids, they're not going to leave. If they suck, they're not leaving because they don't have any value anywhere else. They're going to sit right on your roster. They're going to collect $2 million whether you cut them or not. So now what you're going to start seeing happening, and I know this because it's already been discussed, what you're going to see happening is the collective's going to come and say, hey, look, I know we owe you $4 million. I'll cut you a check right now for $1.5 million. They're going to negotiate buyouts.
And you go get in the portal.
So now, but do you think the boosters are going to be happy?
No.
So now you're paying $1 million.
Just telling you. So this is where Chase, and I think Chase is right. Chase has sat in that seat right there, and day after day when we've talked about this, he says, this is not sustainable.
No.
It's not repeatable. We're doing it right now because it's just wild and crazy. But once the land settles and everybody figures out, okay, this works, this doesn't work, it's going to settle down because this is not sustainable. And I think he's right. Like let's pick on Jimbo here. You go say, hey, we need X to get player Y. Okay. All right. Done. and then you get player Y, and player Y takes you from 9-3 to 9-3. Okay, he just doesn't move the needle. Okay, now the next time you go back to the same guy and you go, hey, listen, need X plus 10 for player W. Nah, I'm good. I've done this before. I got nothing out of it. It's professional sports, right? It's when
dealing with owners.
Well, it's when Theo Epstein, when he went back to Ricketts. Hey, kind of need to make a move. Yeah, you wanted to make a move on Jason Hayward, and that hasn't worked out. You know, you wanted to make a move on, like when he started out with, let's get John Lester, got him.
Right.
Let's get Ben Zobrist, got him. Win a title. We need Jason Hayward. Okay. Now he Hayward's a great dude, but it just hadn't worked out.
Should have stayed in Atlanta.
Yeah, he probably just.
I'm just kidding.
He just didn't work out. Yeah, and so you get that. So that's going to happen at the college level too. When Lane says it's professional sports, he's right. And so and you're right. I hadn't even thought about it like that. He and Saban both have had an NFL cup of coffee, and everything that happens at the NFL level is going to happen here, except for the fact that you don't have the structure to manage it.
You don't have
the NFL has structure to manage the fallout.
Correct. There's no like the NCAA's left the toothpaste out of the tube, or whatever people call it, right? Let the cat out of the box, however you want to call it. There is no governing body. They're not regulating this. It's not going to be regulated.
No.
This is going to have to come, and we actually.
And in fairness to them, they don't have the manpower to do it.
No. They have no idea.
Right.
I mean, this is like me trying to go do heart surgery. Good luck to you, boss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The government is going to have to step in and they're trying to pass bills and all that stuff, but there's more on NCAA investigations. This is a big deal. This is a big deal that has to be dealt with, or you're literally ruining a game. And I'm talking about there's no fixing it until you have somebody like a governing body. I was talking with a school today, okay, that we got hooked up today. So we were talking about, and part of that meeting was about NIL. And the guy's like, yeah, he goes, we're going to do performance-based NILs. I said, well, you're not going to get anybody. He's like, what do you mean we're not going to get anybody? I mean, they'll do that. And I was like, well, you may do performance-based, but if it's between you and Oklahoma is not going to do performance-based, where do you think the kid's going to go? It's not recruiting anymore. Like, you may recruit, which is, Ole Miss fans love me for this, Johnny 3 stars, right? You can go recruit those guys and go do what, you can be a great recruiter and go recruit your 3 stars. But the premier athletes now, they don't even care about your school. Yeah. They don't care about your tradition. And what Jimbo was talking about, tradition?
Tradition. Yeah.
Who gives a shit? Can I cuss on this, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. They don't care. They're going to go pick where, show me the money. And my favorite is the Arch thing where people go, oh, he doesn't care about the money. Get out. How many rich people don't care about money?
None.
Yeah.
In fact, every rich person that I know wants to get richer. I can tell you that in my life, in my career, and you're experiencing this running a business, the more money you make, the more money you want to make.
Yeah, because you got to pay taxes.
Yeah, and because your ego's on it. It just is. Come on, it's normal.
It's good.
I hold nothing against anybody who wants to get richer. Okay. I mean, it makes me, in my opinion, it means your heart's beating. I mean, cool. Yep. Good for you. So I never fault the kid that goes, hey, I want the highest offer.
No.
I don't. I mean, I talked to a college coach the other day who told me they had a kid, had him down at the end. They were going to get him, and then he got an offer elsewhere, and
like the good old days.
Yeah, and he goes, how much? He kind of heard the number, and he goes, I don't blame you.
Yeah,
I mean, he was pissed, but he's like, if you were my kid, I'd tell you to take it.
Like it used to always never really happened at Ole Miss. Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did.
I'm not gonna say that.
Sorry.
Get something in your throat there?
I did.
All right, so
I tell you, my dad used to be the dean of education at Louisiana Monroe.
Really? How about that?
It was. He was a dean.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get me. You know, I have to be like NCAA certified for my business, right?
Yes, I do.
No, but see, the problem is like when you were at like nothing pissed you off more when you were at Arkansas State or South Alabama that you would just recruit your ass off on a kid for like 2 years. I'm talking about you knew everything. I'm talking about put your life and soul, spent weeks of your year away from your family recruiting a kid. And then 25 minutes before 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the first Wednesday in February. This happened to me one year at Arkansas State. I lost 2 kids to Florida State and 2 kids to Auburn between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. On Wednesday morning after I had recruited my ass off for 2 years. And they literally picked up the phone and go, hey, you want to come to Florida State? Hey, you want to come to Auburn? There was no money involved because it was just a better opportunity.
Sure.
Well, this is just this accelerated. Okay? I mean, hey, I want to play in the SEC. That's about as detailed as you're going to get with these kids.
You're right, sure.
All right, I would like to play for a throwing offense. I would like to run the football in a running offense. Okay, I'll go anywhere from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Who's got the most money?
Yeah,
and it's nothing about your culture anymore. Your uniforms or your locker room or your weight room. Is it cool? How awesome is your strength coach? Nobody's going to give a shit. How much are you paying me?
Well, what's interesting about that is that's where the NFL. The college game is different still, although I'm waiting for them to kind of figure it out. Instead of pouring all of your money into toys and fireworks and firecrackers, you know what I mean, stuff. Oh, right. Look at our fancy water slide.
I know exactly where you're going with this, and you're right.
Screw that. Let's put it in NIL.
It would blow the fans' mind. Now, you see like Cowboys are different, right? But go check out the New Orleans Saints practice facility and locker room.
I've been in it. Yeah.
I mean,
it's fine.
Allen High School in Texas is nicer than that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But that's my point. I mean, you don't need a water slide that goes into a chocolate fountain or something that spells out Clemson when you land. I mean, you just need money.
I can't tell you how many former players that I'd be like, what's the first thing? What was the first thing that you were like, wow, about the NFL? I bet you 70% of them will say, I was really surprised at how bad the weight room was.
Yeah.
Or the locker room. I was like, this is the NFL. They don't realize that a lot of those facilities are terrible because they spend it on the players.
Yeah. So that's the next step, right?
If
you revisit this, or I mean, how does it all shake out? I know you don't know, but when you look into your crystal ball, what do you see?
Well, it depends on if the schools can start funding the collectives and how creative they are with it.
I think that happens.
I don't care, but
don't you? I mean, I think this is the big step towards the Power Five breaking away, right, and doing their own thing, and maybe even putting the players under contract, maybe letting the players unionize. I mean, isn't that where this is going? Where you get away from the Title IX legislation and you can kind of do your own thing. It seems like that's where this is headed.
Yeah, so you can technically do it now if you're smart and understand what you're doing in your creative. I gave advice about NIL advice to a Big Ten school. Okay.
Yeah.
The Big Ten school, they're getting the Big Ten check just like the SEC gets the check. But they don't get as big, but they get a check. And so you can be creative on how you move the money around inside the university to add to your collective. And the school technically could pay for the collective, right? So let's say let's just use, they're not getting this, but let's say you were getting, for even numbers, $50 million check, which is what the SEC gets. You're getting a $50 million check from the SEC network every spring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of spending that $50 million check, okay, those big boosters, instead of donating to the school, they donate to the president picks up the phone, he calls the big booster. Hey, I don't want you to donate to the school. I'd like for you to donate your money to the collective this year. Now we're going to take the money, that $50 million, and we're going to move that and replace the money. We're just going to give it right through the university to go build your library or upgrade your classrooms or whatever it is. And you're moving money from the athletic department that you're making in the football and athletic department, you're moving that on campus and then moving the money that was going from outside to the campus into the collectives. And that's how you can build it up a little bit. And that's kind of a creative way for the schools to basically play a little shell game, like having, bank accounts in Switzerland. You can move it around and get the school to pay for the collectives.
If you were in your former office now, given the market, would you do as much transfer portal as Kiffin is doing? I used to be really critical of it at first. I thought, he's making a mistake. At first, I even thought, I wonder if Lane's being lazy here. And then I thought, maybe he's onto something. And now Tyler, and you can tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Because I keep telling people I'm watching an experiment in real time.
You are.
But I kind of think he's onto something. And maybe he stumbled into it. Maybe it was mad genius. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. But it seems to be that's the way to add those kinds of – because you're right. Going out and doing the hey, I think this kid can play. It might take us 2 years. You don't have 2 years anymore.
No, you
and
won't.
so you would I think you would recruit a different kind of way. You would recruit a different guy. I don't know whether you guys would have been as heavy into the portal as they are, but I do think you would have steered into that somewhat because you would have seen that was a path to success.
I think every situation is completely different. Okay, I think every school's in a different situation. Now, let's say if I was still at Ole Miss, like when I got here the first time, or when I came back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would I have been in the portal? Yes, because I could have fixed a lot of problems quickly.
Right.
Like we had a linebacker problem when I got there.
Yeah.
Okay, I think they still got some because a lot of them left.
They still kind of do. Yeah.
But you're able to go fix because you can't fix problems in the when I got there you couldn't fix it transfer wise because they had to sit out a year. And then everybody's like, well, go get a JUCO guy. JUCO guys.
They basically have to sit out a year, too. They just sit out playing.
They sit out playing because it takes them a year. And you look, and I think we talked about this last time when I was here, like Dontario Drummond. All right? If last year if it wasn't for COVID, he would have never had that great year because it takes those guys basically a year to get their feet wet. So it's very hard to do that. But I could have definitely fixed some holes a lot faster. And we could have cut bait with some guys that we needed to cut bait with and get the roster right. But it's a math problem any way you look at it, right? So depending on what the math problem is, if they continue to keep it at 25 and 85 the way it is right now, there is a number that you have to maintain because the taxes are going to be due at some point in time when it comes to having 85 guys on scholarship. You're going to look up one day and you're going to have 61 players on scholarship. Now, if they say, which there's talk, they say screw the 25, you just go 85 on your roster, hell yeah, I may not ever recruit a high school kid again. I mean, but then you look at the other way is like, and nobody's been able to answer this question yet, is if you keep taking portal guys, I'm talking about when I say if you keep, I'm talking about the whole country, you keep the portal as active as it is right now.
It gets empty at some point because there's no high school kids to come in.
There's no fresh blood, right? So if everything was hunky-dory, so like let's say you were in an Alabama situation where your roster's flush and everything like that, and let's say like the number was at 32, that was the number last year that you could take. I would have taken 22 last year, which was my advice to the guys that use this is I would take 20, and you're in a good situation, no number issues. You take 22 guys, high school kids, one for each position, okay, which is kind of the base theory there, and then 10 Band-Aids. You go take 10 guys out of the portal that fix your needs. But here's the other thing you're seeing, and I've seen this. There are schools out there that the coach knows that, hey, I got 1 year left. We got to win right now. I may not even think about signing a high school kid because all I'm going to be doing now is recruiting them for somebody else.
Yeah, so you load up on the portal.
You got to load up on the portal. But long-term wise, if you're portal heavy, and how many portal guys did Lane sign? I don't even know. I know that's terrible of me, and I apologize.
No, it's like 13 or 14, and he's got more coming in, and so much. Some of that.
Or how many high school guys? That'd be very easier for me. How many high school guys he signed?
I'd have to go back and look. It's a small number.
Like as long as you.
But they had a philosophy, whether it's right or wrong. I always give credit. It's one of the things I give you guys credit for. You had a plan, and you stuck to the plan because you said, "Hey, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down our way, right?" And their plan has been, we're not going to reach. We're not going to reach.
Don't have to.
We're not going to reach.
Correct.
And if we're going to go after the elite kid, and if we can't get them, we're going to go to the portal. And at some point, we're going to try to – now they have, to their credit, they have tried to steer into younger guys in the portal where there are some – frankly, there's some salary control.
Allegedly.
Where you have some year control.
Right.
You sign a kid and he can't transfer again, but you've got him 2 years before he can go pro or eligibility expires or whatnot. So they are trying to do more of that. They're not signing a lot of one-and-dones unless it is a Band-Aid, like Troy Brown. Needed a linebacker. Troy Brown, by the way, that shows up at MPW Digital.
He will hit you, by the way.
He will.
I watched this film.
The Troy Brown Show, presented by Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating, is up at MPW.
If he
Digital.
listens to this, I really like the way that's how you hit people.
He's a physical dude. But he's a Band-Aid. He's got 1 year.
Yep.
And so, but they're not trying to get loads of those guys. They'd prefer to get the Michael Triggs and the Jackson Darts, and you give control on those guys. But that's been their plan. We're not going to reach. Would they? I mean, look, Ole Miss would love to sign 20 elite high school players. They'd love to, but if you can't get them, the old days you'd say, okay, well, let's go to Plan B. And now Plan B's in the portal, and you just hope it works out. And so far for Ole Miss, I think it kind of has.
Obviously the roster numbers and all that stuff and scholarship numbers and all that mess that will come into play eventually. If I think Lane's gambling a little bit too. If the 25-85 they start fudging that a little bit,
yeah.
And he's been right so far, so why not do it? I mean, he's rolling 7 and 11 every time. Let's go.
Yeah, no, he's having success at the table.
You have to hit. When you're taking that's the one thing about the portal that I'm sure people talk about it, but the misses in a portal guy is almost double what it would be missing on a high school player. Because I want to see this too. What happens when you take a young portal guy? Okay, so let's say Robbie Ashford. Okay, Robbie, who we had committed here, and all the changes happened. He went to Oregon. Now he's at Auburn, right?
Right.
So he went to Oregon. He's transferred to Auburn. And they got Calzada, and they got the T.J. Finley kid. What happens with
3 portal quarterbacks?
Yeah, get you some of that.
I mean, you can't. There's no way you can keep all those kids happy.
What happens when Calzada's young too?
I know.
What happens when they cut one of those guys that can't transfer? Nobody's been able to answer that question.
No, and I do wonder. Oh, it's a good point. My first response was, well, he could probably get a waiver. But now you open up another.
That's what I'm trying to say is the solution. That's what. Thank you. I teed one up and you just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
The problem is that, and this is what I think, and this is why when you ask me questions about that,
because the waiver would be like, hey, you want a waiver? Here's a waiver. Have at it.
When I think about transfer portal and I think about NIL, that's what goes through my mind is like, sure, there's a solution, but guys, we're just going to continue to open this big box and we're never going to be able to close it. And that's where I'm like, that's why Nick is frustrated. That's why Lane is frustrated, because they've been in the pro football. They know what the solutions are, but they also know that there's zero chance in hell that we can bring that back together, because when the NFL did it, when did they do it? They did it at the beginning of the league.
Yeah.
So they were proactive instead of being reactive. And all this started by, oh, man, I'm tired of chasing down this guy to see if he got paid by the booster. Let's just let them get their money and go. Johnny Manziel complaining. And this was like, talking about the pot calling the kettle black, this is the best thing ever. So A.J. McCarron made me aware of this. I was very unaware until he got pissed off. He was like, the NCAA, he may or may not have been able to come over to my house and eat dinner or whatever, because I took care of him because I coached him in high school. But he's like, I can't get money.
Did you let A.J. McCarron sleep on your couch?
Yeah, actually I did.
Well.
But he had a bed.
Yeah.
But that was when he was played for him in high school, not in college. He wasn't going to sleep in my bed in college. He was good. Starting quarterback at Alabama. He didn't need my house.
He was fine.
He was fine. But all kidding aside, he was very frustrated. It's like, I'm over here trying to get $20 to put gas in my car to go home and see my family. But you could go on the NCAA website and buy his jersey.
Yeah.
And guess where that money went? To the NCAA.
Yeah.
And so that's where, like him and Johnny Manziel and those guys, that's where all this started, is from jersey sales, because the NCAA on their website were selling kids' name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, sure.
That's how the whole term came up.
Right.
All right. And so.
Yeah, Manziel got in trouble for signing autographs. He was signing his name to his stuff.
So when this whole problem started 7, 8, 9 years ago, that they started developing this idea, it was only meant for jersey sales and for, those kind of things.
I know. And look how fast it got to this.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And look, that was my point I feel like I was taught. You know how what's the saying in Tombstone? I feel like I'm playing cards with my sister's kids.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, that's great. I said, but do you know what we do? Like, you give us our job is you give us a rule, and I'm going to find every way to basically break the rule without breaking the rule.
Yeah.
I'm going to find
You're going to find the edges and all the gray stuff. Yeah, sure, of course.
And so I was like, bad idea. Like, and that's what I always said is like, all the NCAA had to do from the jump, all they had to do was say, hey, NCAA, we're an amateur organization. If you want to make money on your name, image, and likeness, we have that. That's called the National Football League. And you can go pro as a high school kid. You can go pro as like the basketball model used to be. I guess they still are now. They changed back. But are they still one and done? They still 1 year now?
Yeah, you have to be a certain age or whatever. But it's essentially 1 year.
If they would have done that, everything had been fine because the 18-year-old that goes to the NFL won't last long and the kids would stay. But I do agree that kids should get paid, but there needed to be a model and do it the right way the first time, and they basically made it so general. It's a suggestion, it's not a rule. Kind of like tampering. Which I had another great conversation about that today too. That was awesome.
About tampering?
Oh yeah. Well,
you have the tampering portal that leads to the transfer portal.
Oh, Coach, you have no idea.
Well, if you're not tampering, you're not doing your job right now.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
I have to tell you out there, I can't even.
It's
that bad.
And you're going to see a lot of younger coaches leave the business at an earlier age, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I just think for some people it's just going to be I don't. Not that they're better. Like you already see this now, guys that have an opportunity to go to the NFL jump
gone.
Yeah,
and will never come back.
Right.
It's just it has affected everything. You can't coach kids hard anymore. You have to adapt the way you coach, and that's every sport. I think. You can't. Look, they're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, sometimes 22-year-old kids, okay? It's not the older guys you ever have to worry about as much, but especially in football, a majority of the kids, not all of them, but definitely a majority of the kids that come into college football programs as scholarship athletes do not have a father figure in their life. Facts. Look it up. At one time, it was 72%. I don't know what it is now. When you're trying to correct incorrect actions of an 18-year-old kid, boy, in college with all this power and the clout,
sure,
you can't go, now, can you come over here and sit down here for a second? I would love to talk to you about your issues. It gets a little crazy, okay? It gets a little boisterous, all right? Your son's a freshman now, right? Because mine's a freshman, or is he a sophomore now?
He's a high school freshman.
So mine's a high school freshman. So we're dealing with the same thing. Okay, I'm sure your conversations of how you've corrected him have changed from the time that he was 6 and 7 to the time that he's 15 years old.
Of course.
And if you got boys at home, you understand this. If he had the transfer portal, I mean, how many times does he want to walk away?
How many times would he have wanted to walk away?
I mean, but think about
not many, but probably a couple times.
It just takes once.
Yeah, and it just takes one bad day.
That's
why I laugh at people, because I joke about it, because I don't like depth charts unless the school gives me the depth chart. Right. You know this. You and I have talked about this before.
We mess with those things, right, on purpose?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But I like to be able to go, when someone goes, well, that's not what really happened. I'm like, hey, man, the school gave it to me. Take it up with the coaches. I just tell, here's the depth chart issued by Ole Miss. Takes my neck off of it.
Yep.
And I know that people are like, I want a depth chart. Well, here's what really happens if I go try to do a depth chart, okay? I might actually get some of it right. And I might expose something that I saw.
Oh, yeah.
And now I've created a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a call from somebody going, hey, you guys.
I think I've done that before. It's like, hey, can you take that guy off that chart? I think I've done that before.
And it's because, and now it's April. And I say, hey, I kind of noticed this dude was running third team a lot. And so I make a depth chart. And I'm like, hey, he was third. Well, he sees that, or better yet, his parents or an uncle or a runner or a former high school coach or whatever sees it and goes, so you're running third team. I got a call the other day from School X. They got a spot for you. They still like you. Remember they recruited you? You wouldn't be third team there. Night. And it's that quick. And now the kid can bolt. And so when you're coaching in the spring and stuff, coaches don't really want to put out a spring depth chart. They don't, unless it's an obvious thing, like at Alabama, Bryce Young's the quarterback.
He's pretty good.
But, if you want to use the word "or" as much as possible. You don't want to clearly delineate things because they're young and they have options and they can leave at a moment's notice. And all they have to do is just run over to compliance and go, I want to get in the portal. I need to follow my paperwork. And there's really nothing they can do to stop them.
Nothing.
And so they're in the portal. And they're before you know it, they're on an official visit to School X, and they wine and dine them and do the little photo shoot, and spin them around on a table and in their fancy uniform. And next thing you know, they transfer and they're gone.
So in my new gig, I was doing I'm definitely not saying who this school was, but spring recruiting is starting, and spring recruiting hasn't happened in the last 3 years.
Right.
So, normally when you go spring recruiting, okay, hey, Neal, you're going to, Water Valley, Oxford, Lafayette. You're going, to South Haven, whatever. Here's your day. This is where you're going. Here are the sheets for those schools with all the players listed at the school, coaches' information, all that stuff. And we give you the sheets, and then you go about your merry day. Okay? Use those as organization. We have schools that are they're giving you the same sheets, but on those sheets are not just the players at that high school. There's significant players in college football that played at that high school for that coach. So now when they're going in spring recruiting and stopping by to check on old Neal McCready over here at Oxford High School, hey, J.J. Pegues played for you, right? Yeah. How's he doing? How's he liking Auburn?
Yeah.
How's he liking Auburn?
Uh-huh.
Hey, we got a spot for him if he ever changes his mind.
Yeah.
Like that's –
if you happen to talk to him or his mom or something. Yeah.
Tell him I said hello. And,
yeah.
Hey, you got my cell, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, just tell him I said hello. And,
that's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happening. A lot.
All right, I'm going to get your thoughts on some of these guys, and then we're going to talk some NFL draft, and I'm going to get you out of here. I've kept you already about 30 minutes longer than I said I would.
It keeps me from having to talk on the phone when I get back to the office.
We're brought to you by Grenada Nissan. Grenada Nissan, just off Interstate 55 in Grenada, Mississippi. They've got a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles. Great lease deals as well. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. Brought to you by Whitney McNutt, Tommy Morgan Incorporated Realtors, serving you for all of your real estate needs in Oxford and Tupelo. She sells condos, land, commercial, and residential family homes. 662-567-2573, 662-842-3844. Brought to you by Service Specialist Staffing and Recruiting Agency. They've been connecting job opportunities to candidates since 1967. If you're on the job hunt, whether you're looking for an entry-level position or you're a seasoned professional, they've got opportunities across the board. What they try to do is get to know you, your strengths, see what you're looking for in your next career move to help you find the right fit. It's free for the candidate. All conversations are kept confidential, so you have nothing to lose by giving them a call. Is your company looking to find quality, hard-to-find talent? Service Specialists can help you too. Keep in mind that payment of service is solely contingent on if you decide to hire a candidate that they send. You have nothing to lose, so give Will, Sydney, or Kelsey a call at 662-832-5138. Or check out their new and improved website at servicespecialistltd.com. I told you about The Rogue. The Rogue sponsors the Peyton Chatney Show. That is up or being processed literally as we speak. It's up in podcast form on MPW Digital. It'll be on this YouTube channel here pretty quick as well. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. We talked about some of the struggles Peyton's having, the team's having, his meeting with Mike Bianco the other day, the team's meeting, I should say, just expectations, social media, all that stuff. Really good visit with Peyton. So that's up, brought to you by The Rogue, 4450 I-55 North in Jackson, or therogue.com. They've got all the best items from Peter Millar, Martin Dingman, Jack Victor, Halsey, True Grit, so many others. Don't just accept what you see, but imagine something new. Step forward, chase after a better version of yourself. Every day, Corinth Dental is helping people reinvent themselves one smile at a time. Dr. Bubba McQueen, Dr. Jenny Beth Hendrick are devoted to restoring and enhancing the natural beauty of your smile using conservative state-of-the-art procedures, including Invisalign. These clear aligners are the virtually invisible way to improve your smile. So call Corinth Dental today for a no-cost digital scan of your teeth. Let them show you the way to a straighter, healthier smile. 12 months, no interest, no down payment. Financing available at corinthdental.com. And we're brought to you by Bell & Grove, based out of Chattanooga. Bell and Grove is a logistics provider, more than 35 years of transportation industry experience. They specialize in domestic freight movement throughout the continental U.S. that can navigate through supply chain issues while also leaning on their partner carriers to get the most competitive rate possible for their customers. In addition, they can help customers design a custom solution for their shipping needs. Whether your business is in need of moving a truckload, a partial shipment, or a flatbed, Bell and Grove can accommodate you. They've got air and ground expedited services for customers who need to move product quickly. For more information, get in touch with Daryl Oliver at 865-672-6557. And last but not least, don't forget, the camp season is getting ready to get started at Southern Traditions Farm. They got camps starting Monday through Friday, starting with May the 30th, 8:30 until 2 each day out at the 68-acre, 32-stall upscale equestrian training and boarding facility in Canton, Mississippi. 2 sand rings, a grass ring, miles of wooded trails, a lot going on at Southern Traditions. So you can let your young person in your life who's interested in equestrian do some of that this summer. Get in touch with Susan Walt or Bowers Cone at bowerscone1@gmail.com, or you can message them on Facebook or Instagram at Southern Traditions Farm. All right, you've seen some of these young quarterbacks. I've talked to you about Arch before on this show. I think we even talked about Nico to some degree on this show. Ole Miss broke today. I'll give credit where it's due. The national guys at 247 broke it that Jaden Rashad is taking an official visit to Ole Miss this weekend. He was at Arkansas last weekend. I think he's going to Oregon next weekend, getting close to a decision. These high school quarterbacks make decisions early. You've seen Rashada. Marcel Reed, the quarterback from Montgomery Bell in Nashville, is coming in on what is now an unofficial visit. Give me your thoughts on those two guys.
I think for me, and I know you and I have talked about this before. I don't know if I've talked about it on here before, but quarterbacks, and I want the fans to know this. When you watch film on a quarterback, and we talk about bust and the 5-star guys and things like that.
Yeah.
It's not because of talent why they bust. And I think we were talking about that earlier. It's about the other shit that goes with it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make the other guys around you better? Are you competitive? And that's why, I was saying on my show, I'm so partial to Matt Corral, in the draft. I'm sure we'll get the draft in a minute,
yep.
But I'm going to war with that guy. I want a guy that's not scared to freaking fight somebody. I want a guy that's got a little shit in his neck. I mean, look who's been successful here. We got, obviously all these Ole Miss fans. Chad Kelly, any good?
As a college player, he's great.
Matt Corral, any good?
Yeah.
Bo Wallace, think about his talent level versus what he did.
Yeah, and I would have loved to have seen what Bo would have done had he not hurt his shoulder.
Yeah.
He played 2 years, yeah. Played 2 years.
People have no idea what he went through, by the way.
I do, but a lot of people don't, yeah.
The mentality, they're all similar, if you get what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Bo's a dog.
Now go back and look at the ones that have been unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And tell me you don't see a demeanor difference.
That's night and day.
Okay, so for me, I think you can take the top 50 talented guys in the country and you can throw them up on a board. And the guys who end up working out and being that guy are the guys that have the other stuff. That's the one that elevates them. But Rashada, to me, is in the same breath talent-wise as Nico and Arch. I think he's the real deal. I actually talked with his coach about him before this even came up. And this has probably been 2 or 3 months ago, or maybe before that. I think it's even before Christmas, when we were doing all of his stuff inside of our system for other schools. The kid has got really quick release. He's very accurate. He's very calm in the pocket. That's what I like. His feet are very calm in the pocket. And I don't watch, and so the fans know this too, I don't watch highlight tapes. We do what we call evaluation tapes, which is so, if you watch a kid's highlight tape, they're all accurate because they're not putting any incompletions on the highlight tape.
They're all awesome.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
So you see decision-making, pocket awareness, and see how calm they are in the pocket. For me, he's going to ask the same amount of money because he probably doesn't see a whole lot of difference between himself and, as a competitor from Nico and Arch. Because if you told me 5 years from now, if you said, hey, Rashada was better than those other two, I would not be surprised because he has that kind of talent level.
Right.
It's the other stuff that's going to separate those guys. Does that make sense?
Sure. You were saying, Arch is such a safe bet because of his pedigree. He grew up in it.
I would put my money on Arch because of everything else.
Of course.
I mean, it's a modern miracle that he's turned out to even where he's at right now.
Yeah, it just says something. It says something about what he's got. He's got an it factor that all this stuff doesn't. It didn't spoil him.
There's been a lot of pro athletes and quarterbacks and families. They have kids that play football. And there's not many of them. That's why you don't hear many of those guys make it.
Sure.
But that's the safe bet with me. Nico, I always say that Lama. I can't remember. I ain't gonna try. I'm a Leva.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Unbelievable upside.
Yeah.
His ceiling is probably higher than anybody's.
Yeah.
But he's also got the lowest floor.
Yeah, he's kind of Chet Holmgren-y.
I can see that. Somebody's body type.
Well, a little bit,
He's
right?
so
it's interesting, and not to get down the NBA thing. You can tell that Carson and I have been talking.
You know how many minutes of the NBA I've watched this year?
I don't know, but you know how many minutes of NBA draft I've listened to and talked because of my son.
I watch college.
I mean, we talk about Jabari Smith and Chet Holm. We talk about those guys to the point where now I feel like I'm on a first name basis.
Your boys?
Yeah, like if Jabari Smith walked in here right now, I'd be like, hey, Jabari, what's going on, man? How you doing? I mean, it wouldn't even be an introduction. He'd be like, yeah,
hey,
how's your day? I mean,
how's your mama doing?
Yeah, how's everybody doing?
What's Chase say? How's your mama now?
Yeah, I mean, I know all about Jabari's family and stuff. I've heard all about it, and so anyway, there's like with Holmgren,
right?
The NBA people, for those that don't know, he's the 7 foot
freshman from Gonzaga.
From Gonzaga who so lean, so skinny. But like if you watch him play, he's a dog. Like he likes physicality. He sets screens. That dude's one of the best screen setters that you'll ever see. The question is he going to grow into that body? No one knows. You kind of look at his parents, like, I don't know, and you look at his shoulders, they're not very broad. And so the odds of him being the big Joel Embiid-looking guy on the court, not very good. Now, he's a freak. He can score, he can dribble, he can handle, he's a rim protector. He can do so many things, but so you're asking, okay, so you win the lottery, right? Jabari, I think's a safer bet. Paolo Banchero, probably a safer bet. Hell, Jared Ivey might be a safer bet. The guy with the highest ceiling is Holmgren. Holmgren's ceiling is off the charts, but his floor's low. Because if he doesn't grow into that body and you're having to play him at the 4 or the 5 in the NBA on a night-in, night-out basis, I mean,
right.
Joel Embiid's going to eat him alive.
Right.
And then, Nikola Jokic is going to eat him alive. And when he plays against, agile fours, they're just going to eat him up. They're just going to crush him. They're just going to swallow him. But if he does go from what he is now and puts 35 pounds of muscle on and gets just a little, because it's not, you don't have to ask him to go be tough.
Right.
A lot of guys like him, you say, hey, be physical, and I'm good. Not him. He'll go be physical. He likes it. And so if he grows into that body, he's a superstar.
Right.
And so Iamaleva's a lot like that, right? Because there's these people that look at his family and stuff and they go, this kid's going to be 6'6". He's going to be 240. He's got a cannon. He's got great feet, great legs. And everybody goes, this dude's going to be a superstar. But what if his body doesn't do that, right?
I'm going to try to sneak on this app real quick. I want to see it. But he's already 6'5 plus, and he's 200 pounds plus. And the thing about him is when he throws the ball, you can watch his eval tape, and you're like, I don't know. I don't see it. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, holy shit. And like, he does his good stuff is better than anybody's. But his bad stuff is worse than
there's a lot to work on. So there's a floor.
There's a big window there.
And that's where that $8 million for him is so fascinating because
you're paying up, to use your example, you're paying up for Chet Holmgren is what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I see it. I mean, I'm not turning him down. If I got $8 million, I'm taking him because you get one of them, you're going to be in good shape. Arch, when you watch Arch's highlights, which is what the fans see, you see all this stuff. where I get even a bigger appreciation for Arch, besides all the stuff that what his name is and the stuff that he's had to deal with and how he's dealt with it, is he gets the shit knocked out of him every time he drops back to pass. Every time. I mean, he has zero protection.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this before, but the thing that's impressive is you're like, oh, the ball's incomplete. But what you don't realize is that was a pretty damn good spot for that ball to be.
Right.
Receiver ran the wrong route.
An SEC receiver would have been there.
Would have walked in the end zone.
Yeah.
He's putting it where it's supposed to be. And you can tell he's been taught that. He can change his arm angles. And what I like about him is probably going to end up helping him by having the shit knocked out of him every play, is he's learned how to throw off platform. And so the game, which when we talk about the draft, we'll get to a quarterback, but the game is not played in a 7-on-7 aspect. It's not played in a private workout. There's 11 dudes trying to break your neck every snap, and they're really trying to hurt you physically, and that's their intention. And you got to learn how to get the ball off and do your job, and that's probably what's most impressive with me about him. He's a little bit more athletic than what he's supposed to be. We got something funny over there.
Weldon Rotenberg's in the chat. He says, hey, Siskey, and then he says, don't hate on 2A Louisiana.
Hey, I miss Weldon. Me and you got to get on the golf course because Stellar got a groove back. I went 39 on the back the other night.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to get on the golf course with Weldon. So he's a good one. I can't believe he's on there. Now my whole mind's gonna be messed up. But Rashada, going back to Rashada. Rashada was very calm in the pocket.
Yeah.
And what you see on the highlight tapes, kind of what you see in the eval tape.
He's got a high floor.
High floor.
Yeah.
He's a safe bet. Very good high school. Very, very. I mean, they got prospects everywhere.
I think he's the kid that. I mean, I think if you told Lane that, hey, you can have one quarterback, I think he'd say Arch. And then I think if you said you can't have Arch, he'd say I want Rashada. I actually think he likes Rashada more than he likes Nico. And Ole Miss like Nico.
Me personally, just you in the day now that you can't mess with this money's in there.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this a little bit ago.
Yeah.
If I know that if I get a bust and my ass is fired when I have to pay for a bust, I no longer look at ceiling. I'm looking at floor.
I know.
Because
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, all the sense in the world, man.
So I'm no longer it changes when you were talking about how things have changed. That's how it's changed.
You used to
I would have changed.
Yeah, you used to project on potential.
Can't do it anymore.
Because you could go sign 20-something guys, and if 2/3 of them turned out, it was a great class.
Cedric Johnson.
Yeah. And Cedric's a great example, right? Because I think he's getting ready to have a star year.
Yeah, and I would have to admit I fell into that one. I got lucky on that one.
Yeah.
I signed his brother.
But that's my point though, is like I don't know that in today, like and I don't mean to backtrack the conversation, but I don't know that today, right, at an SEC program, you would sign Cedric Johnson out of high school. Cedric
Johnson would probably be a group of 5 player right now. He'd be in the portal, probably be up somewhere. But
right. But that's my point.
And you're exactly right. And when you look at who's getting signed out of high school right now, the guys that we used to know as SEC players, Snoop Connor's not in the SEC. Cedric Johnson's not in the SEC.
Yeah.
Nick Broker's probably not in the SEC or Big Ten.
No.
We can go down the list.
He would have started in the MAC.
Ely would have been for sure.
He was unique. Sure.
Mingo would have been fine. Drummond, no. I mean, we can just go down the list. And you go back in the past. Mike Hilton's, no. Cody Coors, no. You can just keep going down the list.
Oh, that's a great point.
They don't come to Ole Miss. They never. That's where
because you would have never gone that far. You would have taken his spot. Would have gone to a portal kid.
Correct. Would have never gotten there.
Yeah.
Now, would you go and get Larry Matunzel?
Sure, of course. Laquan Treadwell, sure. Robert Kimdichie. Yeah, sure.
Tony Conner. Yep.
Yeah.
All the same. Cody Pruitt, no. Yeah. Trey Elston, no.
Well, Cody Core's a great example. You guys, he was at the bottom of a class. He's a kid out of Auburn. Auburn didn't offer him.
None of those guys.
Yeah.
And then so you got to, Isaac Gross probably no because he was undersized. I mean, you just don't stretch anymore. But anyway, that's the biggest difference is you're sitting there and you're now going floor. And so I'm taking. I mean, I know you got to take Arch, but golly, they're both. I would go. I would take Arch here for sure. But Rashada's not very far behind it because I'm very high on the kid. I think he's really good. I think he's got the right stuff. I've talked to the kid.
What do you think about Reed?
You had to ask me that one, didn't you?
Yeah, and I don't want to blow up the kid because he's a kid, but he's the one it's kind of interesting. I told you this, and maybe I'm reading some tea leaves, and maybe I'm wrong. He was at Arkansas 2 weeks ago, maybe, or last week, I can't remember. And for a while, I thought he was kind of Arkansas's guy, like listening to people. And I don't think Arkansas thinks they can get him because I think Arkansas is going to commit Malachi Singleton, the quarterback out of Georgia, on Monday. And I think the top guy on Arkansas's board is Rashada, and I just don't think Arkansas thinks they can get him. So I think they're going to go ahead and get the guy they can get.
Right.
And Singleton is a very KJ Jefferson-ish quarterback. He can really run. He's physical. Got a good arm. There's a lot of similarities.
KJ Jefferson wouldn't be at Arkansas.
No, he would have been, I don't know where KJ
Southern Miss or
yeah,
Memphis.
Someplace like that, and then entered the portal as a successful quarterback. Anyway, so I there was a time before this Rashada thing broke today, I thought Reed was coming in and Ole Miss was going to push and get him. And now I'm kind of thinking, they're going to wait. I mean, they're going to wait. They're going to stay on Rashada until they can't get him or until they figure out how to get him. But I'm curious to see what happens with Reed now. And I'm starting to wonder, as I'm just talking this out in my head, I'm starting to wonder if Reed is the guy whose stock is falling.
I'm trying to think the best way to put this. He's got some development to do. He's not going anywhere and playing first year.
Yeah.
He's definitely not coming here and playing first year. He's sitting. I mean, you got two pretty good quarters, really three. I think he's a depth guy if he comes here. Now, look, Lane's as good with quarterbacks as they come. He is. I saw what he did with Blake Sims, and Blake Sims was a forgotten soul. All right, because I was there, and we went out and got Jake Coker from Florida State because we didn't think Blake could get it done. Lane comes in. Blake Sims has the year of his life, and Lane can do things with those kind of guys. He's very, very good at what he does, developing quarterbacks. But he's going to have to be developed, decision-making, accuracy issues. And then athletically, I mean, I think he's got some improving to do and developing and things to do. He's got a long way to go, I think. I think he's talented. I think he's a kid that definitely is. I mean, you got to get one. You can't just not take one. You got to take one every year.
Yeah.
And I don't know who else they are recruiting, but if he's the next guy up, he's the next guy up. But if you're asking me if I'm taking Rashada or Reed, they're in two different talent classes.
Right.
But I think he's got some development to do. But look, I mean, I'm just telling you, Lane's pulled. He can pull the rabbit out of a hat when he's developing quarterbacks. He's always done it.
No, he's done really well with quarterbacks, no question.
Wherever he's been.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, oh, look what he did with Matt Corral. He did it with Blake. I mean, I saw him do it with Blake Sims. And I don't think the public knows what he did with Blake Sims. They're like, oh, look what he did with Matt Corral. No. No, that was Matt was already talented. Matt just needed to know where to and where not to throw the football as far as making decisions. Blake Sims, what he did with that was like, in my opinion, I don't think he's ever developed a quarterback as well as he did with Blake Sims. I mean, it was. I'll tell you a funny story real quick. This is good. Lane won't hear this, but he'll laugh. We're playing Florida. Lane's first year's coordinator. We're playing Florida, and Blake is, and so it's like the fourth game of the year, first SEC game, I think. And Nick is losing his mind on the headset. I'm talking about like, get this out of the game. It's going nuts. Got quiet for a minute. Lane goes, hey, coach, the second quarter, he's 24 for 28 for 275 yards and 4 touchdowns. Who do you want me to put in the game? I mean, he was ready to pull him out of the game because of all this stuff that he thought he was making the wrong decisions, and he was, but Lane had done a great job developing him, and you didn't even looked up, and the guy's thrown for 275 yards. Well, only 4 incompletions and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's had the same amount of touchdowns as incompletions in the first half, and Lane was real quiet. And after Coach went on his rant, he was like, just read his stat line off the, like the little the banner that they have on the stadium. He just read it. He's looked up, read his stat line, and goes, "Who do you want me to put in the game?" Just like, all right, leave him in. He's fine. It was like but what he did with Blake Sims is magic, and I will say Marcel Reed is more talented than Blake Sims. I'll tell you that as a quarterback.
Sure.
And
Marcel has a lot of intangibles. Really smart kid.
Yeah, smart kid.
Yeah,
good school. But I think he would have some developing to do.
Okay. All right, let's transition to this. Last few minutes I got with you. The knock on Corral a little bit, Matt Corral, the former Ole Miss quarterback, in case there's two people out there that have no idea. And if you're out there watching for the first time, welcome. The knock on him, ironically, and the NFL does this. This is just what the NFL does. It's an NFL cycle. They can't help themselves.
It's unbelievable.
The season ends, and there's 4 months, and they every day get together and go, okay, let's create something. And
let's validate our jobs.
Yeah, let's just meet. Let's meet. And they do this thing with Corral now where they go, okay, well, back in high school he had a thing. And when he got to Ole Miss, he lost his job because he made bad decisions, changed plays, was crazy. But the last 2 years, they had that 2 bad games in 2020 with lots of turnovers. But now what we see is he's this guy that he's one read. He's a system quarterback. Lane babysat him. This was Lane, who's as you've said, I mean, even the people who despise Lane Kiffin will tell you that he's Rain Man on the field during a game offensively.
Probably the best offensive play caller I've ever been around.
So they're like, he won't have Lane to bail him out. He won't have Lane on the sideline to do that whistle that he does and send him a signal that.
That's impressive, by the way.
Yeah, that changes a play.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're like, and then other people, and it seems to be shifting this way. I sense that Corral is gaining some traction here in the last week. But the criticism that he's a one-read guy, one read and run, that he can't read defenses, that he can't do these things, that the arm talent, someone said arm talent's not there. I'm like, if that guy doesn't have arm talent, then I don't really know what I'm watching.
Whoever said that, just turn them off.
Well, here's my thing, right, is that with different quarterbacks, and I think Willis is this way, and Malik might end up being a great quarterback. I don't know. But my thing about him is they love that final throw that he makes. And yeah, it's impressive as hell. I mean, that 80-something yard throw.
Talking about the one where he's going to be on the stretcher going off to the sideline by the time the ball lands.
Yeah, well, I watch a lot of NFL, and nobody runs that play in the NFL, right? That's not the play you run in the NFL against NFL defenses. Maybe you run a Hail Mary at the end of a half or at the end of a game, sure. Do you want a quarterback who can throw the ball 80 yards? Well, sure, why not, right? But is that the main thing you're looking for? I don't think so. I want someone who's accurate in the intermediate game. I want someone who can read. I want someone who can make that deep out, who can put a ball in a window.
On time and accurate.
On time and accurate, can hit a window where it's either incomplete or caught. And I want maturity. My criticism of Matt would be simple is, hey, if I'm going to pay you $15 million a year, I'm paying you to play, not to take on that starting middle linebacker with Cleveland.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people talking about that too. I mean, look, I've seen it happen with a bunch of dudes I've coached. When they start getting paid, they get it figured out. That part, taking care of their body, that's one of the first things. And Matt's, I mean, where I knew that Matt had turned the corner from a maturity standpoint, I mean, he became a vegetarian. He changed his diet.
Yeah.
That wasn't the Matt Corral that came here in 2018 or whatever year it was. He's really grown up.
He was a kid then.
He was a kid. And
chasing girls and partying. And,
I would have been too.
Sure.
Right? But I'll say this is I've gotten a couple calls, obviously, leading up to the draft, and most of them were, hey, you were right. Because I remember when everybody was coming in here looking at Jordan. And I was like, hey, when you're over there, look at that freshman over there. He's going to be a dude. From the day he stepped on campus, one of the most arm-talented human beings I've ever laid eyes on.
Yeah, sure.
And I've seen a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And he got it figured out, and I'm biased. I know that. And I have to say that because I am biased. I love the kid. I would go to war with him. He did get me hit in a Egg Bowl game one time when he started a fight, and they threw out the wrong number 2. his freshman year, and I was going out there and got my ass knocked out. I got hit very hard. It sucked, but I still love him though. But
who hit you?
I have no idea. I wish I knew, but it was good. It was good. It was good. I got hit. I don't know. It was just I went running. I was trying to get because we didn't have any more quarterbacks left. I don't know.
Right.
Like you may would have had to come take a snap.
We're gonna be me.
And so I was trying to make my way to him, and I got hit. That was bad. Hurt. Incidentally, that was when Moorhead and Ross got into it after the game. That was fun too. But I'm partial. I'll go to war with a guy, and I love the way he makes his teammates around him better. I don't know what else you want. Turn on the film. That's where I get so, like, I don't understand it. How, just turn on the film and watch the guys play. And my thing with Malik is he is an extremely talented human being.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely talented.
Sure.
But turn on the film. When the going gets tough, what does he rely on to win games?
His feet, his
Okay.
legs, yeah.
His legs. All right, let's look at, and I said this on the podcast the other day, so if you didn't listen, go back and listen, but college.
Tyler's podcast, by the way, is Home Visit with Tyler Siskey and the Associates. It's on the MPW Digital Network. You should listen to it. He gives great guests as well.
Thank you, Todd. But the college game is it's a 12-game season, okay? Well, you play 4 directional schools a year or whatever, you get blown out or you blow somebody out. So your starting quarterback plays about 9, I think the average is like 9 games in a quarter, a season, because the backups are playing the rest of the quarters, like in time, right? Well, in the NFL, there's a 17-game regular season. Then you have playoffs, and they get another probably additional game time, 1 game time in the preseason, counting. So you're really playing 18 games plus the playoffs. And if you're in the wild card, what are you playing, 22 games a season?
Potentially, if everything goes well.
And guess what? They don't come out of the game because NFL games are fourth quarter games. Very rarely do you see the backup quarterback come in and play if everything's hunky-dory and the guy's not hurt. And so these guys that run the ball, a.k.a. Lamar Jackson, a.k.a. Cam Newton, a.k.a. Russell Wilson, these guys, a.k.a. Deshaun Watson, these guys that run the ball and that's their weapon, they don't stay healthy. And their shelf life is very limited. Cam Newton, the best college quarterback I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes, play the game. And then he doesn't last, 4 good years in the NFL, maybe 5? I don't even know the number.
Yeah, I don't know the number.
But he's an MVP not too long ago.
Sure.
And now he can't even get a job.
Yeah.
And so the shelf life of those guys are low, regardless of how well you throw the ball. But it's a throwing league. And so you have to keep that in account is now they're putting twice the amount of labor on their body and hits and running the ball. And then, yeah, do they win when Lamar Jackson plays? Absolutely. But when he doesn't play, what happens? So that's why I always, for me, that's why Malik Willis, and then when the going gets tough, I mean, they may throw 17 passes in a game, but he's going to run for 220 yards.
So where do you see Matt going, if you had to guess? Because there is some movement. There's rumors. I don't see the Saints moving up to take Matt.
I mean, regardless of what I think Malik Willis is going to be the first one. What's going to happen is somebody's going to jump up and take him because his workout was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the game's not a workout. I think Malik goes 1, and I think Matt probably goes. Of course, the Saints are there. Whether they're 16 or 18, somewhere in there.
They're 16 and 19.
16 and 19.
And there had been some talk about them combining those picks. I just don't think that's realistic. They have too many needs, and their window's now.
I think Matt and Pickett go in that last half of the first round, and then I think the players, the one that's going to kind of tilt this whole deal are the Seahawks. That's the one that's going. There's 2 things that are going to tilt the quarterback next week. Okay. One's the Seahawks. They got to get a quarterback. I think they're at 44 in the second round, if my mind's right, somewhere in that early 40
That sounds
range.
right. Yeah.
They're going to take who's left, unless they decide to go up and get one. Unless they decide to spend an earlier pick. But they can sit there and probably get Sam Howell at 44 or whoever that last guy on the board left, or Matt, if Matt's the last one left.
What's beyond the money? And obviously the money is you want to go as fast as you can and get as much as you can. But for Matt long term, what's the best scenario that could happen to him next week?
First round pick. So the first round, I don't know if fans know this or not, but the first round, the players have 4 years of guaranteed money. So whenever they sign their initial deal, all of that money is guaranteed. Signing bonus, everything's guaranteed. Second round picks, just the first 2 years are guaranteed. Okay? So they can get cut penalty free basically after that. So that's the only amount of money that's guaranteed. And if you're third round and beyond, there's nothing guaranteed. So that's why it's important to make sure you're a first or second round.
But is there a type of franchise? Is there a team that sticks out that's needing a quarterback? I mean, Pittsburgh, Seattle, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, some of the teams that get talked about, Washington, that get talked about with quarterbacks. Is there one that you go, that's where I'd love to see him land because I think it would be best for him?
Me personally, I'd probably say Pittsburgh out of that. It's because I know I just like their franchise. I like the way they do things from a quarterback standpoint, and they give guys time.
That was my next question. Does he need a year?
Depends on where. I don't think there's a surefire. If you're, like last year, Trevor Lawrence going to Jacksonville, Matt Wilson. Zach Wilson going to the Jets. They have no other options. And that's what I was getting at. The other wrinkle is this guy named Baker Mayfield. Okay, there's still some free agents out there.
Yeah,
that's going to be picked up. That's going to change the dynamic of who's drafting what. I still think that's going to happen.
Has Garoppolo landed yet?
I don't know that.
For some reason, I still think his name's still kind of floating around out there.
For me, and that's what I was talking about on the podcast this week, is for me I'm going to war with Matt. I like Kenny Pickett. I like Sam. I would have no problem starting those two guys. Now, but you got to know what you're getting. You're getting a first-round quarterback with a team. But I would really like to see. But I think Malik and I think Sam Howell are probably going to have to go somewhere where they have like a New Orleans with a Jameis Winston. They got a guy that's going to start for a year, bring him along, and then go. But Matt could do it. I'm excited for him. It's pretty cool when you see them, go as far as they've come since the guy got there.
Oh, sure.
It's fun, so I'm excited for him.
Is there anybody? I know you've got some notes over there. Is there anybody? What's the first? What's the first spot in the draft that you're kind of watching? Going, this is because I'm expecting a run on offensive linemen
early.
I'm expecting a run on wide receivers early, as that's become a premier position in the NFL more and more. I mean, I think people saw what Jamar Chase, his impact on the Bengals last year, and it's impacted the market. Now you have a lot of moves with wide receivers. Deebo Samuel saying he's not coming back to San Francisco. He wants out. So you have some trades that could happen. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff could go on here in the next week that shapes that draft. But is there something that on draft night you're like, okay, this is the first?
The first pick.
Okay.
If Jacksonville doesn't take a left tackle, they should be shot. I mean, you just invested all this money in the offseason trying to help your quarterback because you drafted number 1 last year.
So who would you take? Because there's several. I would too.
Evan Neal.
I would too.
It's not even. I don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Evan Neal.
I watched him all last year, and I thought that guy is just.
Now there's 2 now. Icky at NC State.
Yeah.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
But he's not better than. I mean, there's a little bit of difference, and Evan Neal is Pro Bowl. I mean, he's better. He would have been the best offensive lineman in the draft last year, the year before. He's really good. And then the one I'm interested in, because I want to see what our Bengals do down there at late.
I know.
Let me tell you who's going to go in the late first round. That's going to be a Pro Bowler right away.
Tyler Linderbaum.
Right there, Tyler Linderbaum, Iowa. Like there he is, the Hawkeyes. That's the baddest dude that's ever played center, maybe in the history of football.
I'm hoping he falls to them.
He may,
because if he falls to them, they went out and they've revamped their offensive line to protect Burrow.
Right.
I mean, this is a team that went to the Super Bowl, was leading late in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl with that offensive line. And now they've fixed it, really. And if you add Lindenbaum and it lets you move the 2 other guys, makes you keep them at guard.
Isn't the center, though, isn't that Joe's boy from like LSU or something, the center?
Yeah, but he can play a different spot.
Yeah, that was the only thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, they could move him to guard, and I think guard would be a more natural position for him. We got Lyle Collins, who's one of LSU boy.
Yeah, Joe's gonna get those LSU guys in there. The one I'm interested in, I know we've talked about this. I don't know. I'm sure you've talked about it 1,000 times, but the most undervalued player in the SEC last year, who's the only receiver that's different than what's out there, is Treylon Burks.
Yeah,
and I was talking about this the other day. Is he should give 3% of his signing bonus to A.J. Brown, because A.J. they're the same kind of player, same body type.
Yeah.
Okay, more not the receivers are either tall, lanky, long, or they're shorter and faster. Now 6 foot, I say short. He's the 6'2", 220 guy. He's the boxy, strong guy. And that's what AJ is. And so AJ, there was doubt on AJ's speed coming out. That was why he failed the second round. And then, like, when AJ left, I was like, what are you going to do, catch more balls? I mean, the knock on him was he's a 4.5 guy, not a 4.3 or 4.4 guy. That's what the NFL guys picked on because he was a mid 4.5 guy. Well, it's Treylon Burks. I mean, it's all reincarnated.
Yeah.
And Treylon's probably the closest and maybe the only time I could compare somebody to AJ. That's who he is. And so I'd like to see where he goes. I think he was so undervalued. We talked about quarterbacks. I'm not going to waste your time there. And then Sam Williams. I can't even describe to you how happy I am for that kid.
He is going to be a steal in the draft. Because the NFL's going to do it, man. I'm just telling you, it's going to be frustrating for Ole Miss people. And it's going to be really frustrating for Sam because he's not going to go first round. He's probably not going to go second round. And he's going to get into that third round, and people are going to get antsy. And someone in an organization is finally going to say the obvious thing, which is, people do grow up.
Yeah.
People do change, and a lot of people, the thing that changes you is becoming a father. And when you watch Sam, and I'm just telling you, and 2 years ago I thought this dude's out of control. He's on his way to prison. He is not going to handle life well. I remember when he got arrested and stuff thinking, what a waste. I mean, he's just not gonna, and to his credit and to the people around him's credit, he put it together. And that little boy has changed the way he thinks. He's changed the way he talks. If you go back and watch Sam's interview with the media after his pro day workout, it's night and day difference. In much the same way that Matt Corral's changed over time. But an organization, someone's going to go, you know what? I'll put my job on it. I bet he doesn't get in trouble. I bet he's a model citizen. I bet he keeps playing for his son. And, guys, he's a first-round talent.
No question about that. And I didn't get into it on my podcast, but I obviously know. I think I've probably talked to you about it. In all of my years, probably the what he has come from and what he has gone through, and we talk about movies, The Blind Side and all that stuff. It doesn't hold a candle to this. That's why I'm proud, because people that come from he's had every reason to quit. He's had every reason to do bad, and he's succeeded. And I can't be more ecstatic for the kid because he's worked his ass off, not only physically, but mentally, and the way he carries himself. And like you said, he became a father, and just he's made it. And I love his, adopted mother and just his whole situation. People have no idea. They really don't. And as bad as you think it could be, I promise you, I know we've talked, it's 1,000 times worse than you could probably ever imagine. And the worst one I've ever been a part of. Just so happy for him. But to your point, the reason he would get into the third round is because there wouldn't be guaranteed money if he.
Right. If
so
something happened.
That's safer on the business. That's the business side of the NFL.
Yeah, and that's going to be the price he pays, I'm afraid. But
I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody late on Friday night decides to bump up and say, "Okay, I'll do it," like you're saying.
Yep.
They got that 24 hours to think, and they go, "You know what we can do?"
I keep hoping our Bengals do it. Boy, you put an athlete like that on that defensive line in Cincinnati.
They need it too.
Yeah, because they kind of got by with just some blue-collar, hard-nosed guys up front. Cincinnati did. You had a freak of an athlete like that.
Yeah, I'm excited for him, and then
and put him in. And I'd like to see him in an organization that has some veterans and stuff like that. But I think Sam's going to be great. I really do. I watch Sam with his little boy, and I think it's fine. Everything's fine.
And he's always been. We talk about good-hearted people.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the kid.
Yeah.
Like in issues he had or whatever. It wasn't good. It's not like he was a bad kid. He upbringing.
Yeah.
Where he came from and things like that. Just an unbelievable human being. He's just so lovable. You know what I mean? You can't not love the kid once you know him. I mean, he's a lovable dude. And then you know who the first running back is going to be off the board, right?
Who?
He's one of those 3-star guys that nobody wanted us to recruit around here. Brees Hall from Kansas. We ended up, they didn't want us to take the 3-star Brees Hall from Kansas, so we took. It worked out. We took Snoop Connor, but Brees Hall. Ole Miss fans have no idea how close Brees Hall was to being a Rebel. Have no idea.
Is that one that keeps you up at night a little bit?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. A little bit. And it wasn't because we couldn't have got him.
Yeah.
We made a decision to go somewhere else. But yeah, it keeps me up a little bit. Every time I see him, Heisman Trophy candidate.
That's always.
Yeah, it keeps me a little bit. A little bit.
I always laugh at coaches like, we don't pay attention to what you guys say or write or what the fans are. Okay, sure.
Oh, I mean, how could you not? That's all I heard. 3-star. That's why on my podcast, now that,
Weldon says don't tell Clay.
Oh, I was literally about to say I had written down. So Weldon knows this. So Clay Karcher, who works for me now, is going to be my right-hand guy at Alabama, Ole Miss, and then now he's working with me. So he finds Brees Hall. And ironically, he's got a knack for finding running backs. Don't ask me why. Weldon's probably laughing right now. He also found Josh Jacobs at Alabama. He was a last week signee before signing day.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a knack for it. So he brings Brees Hall. We like him. We go down there and we're like, we're not taking a running back from Kansas. Look who he's playing against. So we ended up taking Snoop, and then Clay. So we may or may not send every time there is a Brees Hall mention publicly.
Yeah.
There's a group thread with former coaches here at Ole Miss that we post that in, and we get the bird flipped back at us and things like that.
So what led to ultimately not taking him? Was it the fact that you were afraid of the pushback you'd get for taking him instead of a local kid?
No, there wasn't a whole lot separating him and Snoop, and you're going to take the in-state kid anyway.
Yeah.
Over that, and then the level of competition. Snoop's playing 6A football in Mississippi. He's playing there were some things that led to that, but very similar. I'm going to be honest with you. Snoop Connor, wherever he goes, if you put Snoop and did the same things that Brees Hall did at Iowa State, you'd probably have similar results. Dude can play.
Yeah.
Dude's an NFL running back. He's going to get. Just keep an eye on that one. I think he's going to make it.
I think my friend Chance Campbell's going to get drafted. I think it's going to be the end of the draft, but I do think he's getting drafted. I think 6th round.
Guys like that, dependable guys that can play teams. And I tell you, if you want to play in the NFL and you're not a 1st-round pick, be good on special teams.
Yeah, he'll do all of that well.
He'll do all of it great.
Yeah.
He'll get paid, and he's a guy that'll turn around and you look up and he'll be 7-8 years in the league, and as long as he stays healthy.
I think so too.
But that's good stuff, man.
Hey, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. I know I told you, hey, can you give me 20 minutes? And you came and gave me about an hour 39.
Clay's probably not watching, but he's probably cussing me right now because I told him I'd make some phone calls for him this afternoon. But what he doesn't know is that it's 2:46 here in about an hour. So when I leave you, people don't know this, I live right behind Neal. So I'm going back and I'm packing and I'm going to Talladega.
Oh, is that this weekend?
Oh, yeah, it's this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's doing the double-decker thing this weekend. Yeah. I'm going. That is my double-decker.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a little man trip planned, and tomorrow morning at 8:00, there will be some well-known former home visit guest.
Yeah.
We're going to have a little foursome at the country club. We're going to see if we can play 100 holes tomorrow. And then we're going to be at Talladega on Speedway Boulevard and going to the Riley Green concert Saturday night. And so if you see us out there, come by and say hello. We'll get you come by and say hello. But we'll be at Talladega from the infield to the garage to the Speedway Boulevard to the suites. We got it all covered. So
that's awesome. Well, y'all have fun. Appreciate the time again as always. Again, thanks to Richard Cross earlier for his time on the show. Thanks to Tyler. Thanks to everybody for making us a part of your week each week. Please don't forget Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating, making this show possible week after week after week. We really appreciate it. Again, a couple of reminders of things that are in the MPW digital feed. The Peyton Chatney Show, I think it's up. It might still be processing. It might even have to get reloaded. Let me look here. I'm curious. I know it's a bad pod, but I'm actually legitimately curious. I think it's still processing. Yep. So it's got to get reloaded. Anyway, that'll be there, but it's in podcast form. And then the Troy Brown Show is available to you as well, the premiere edition of that show. So check all that out. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell a friend, all that stuff. And thanks for being with us. Enjoy your weekend. We'll have coverage of Ole Miss, Mississippi State baseball, there's some recruiting coverage up on the site. We'll have some football to you as well. Grove Bowl on Saturday at noon. And depending on what happens with me and jury duty, we'll be back with you here on Monday morning.
Guilty.
With another edition of the Oxford Exxon podcast. Until then, take care.
That's how you get out of them.